Blessed love and peace. This is Tobariguca Dao, portion 4, Vayeira, which includes from Torah, Bereshit, 18:1 a 22:24, from Chandogya Upanishad, Kanda 1:4, from the Bhagavad Gita, Yana Karma Samyasa Yogehe, 4, from Tao Te Ching, 4, from Lun Yu, 4, from the Digha Nikaya, the Samanya Phala Sutta 2, from the Dhammapada, the Pupavaga 4, from Gospels, Matthew 7-8, from Quran, Surah An-Nisa 4, from Haudenosaunee, the Gayana Shagoa, the narrative of Digha Novida, verses 75-94. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. Allah wabha. Dao ka dao fei chong dao, ming ku ming fei chong ming. Ja Rastafari. Deus noster qui es in celis, sanctificator nomen tuum. Vaheguru Satnam. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pariagafen. Amen. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kasanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'dvar Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Sivamastu save jagatehi. Sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. Vagabir. Akwaba upendo na amani. Fikiri na salami. Chinta dan padamian lebavamir. Umajaka. Ubuntu Shabonam Fakithka. Shishem Kamosanida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wokan tokum. Talk odokashin good. Government the God. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Atajamya yatafanami. Mado. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Torah. Now Elohim appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of the tent when the day was hot. And he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men were standing beside him. And he saw, and he ran towards them from the entrance of the tent, and he prostrated himself to the ground. And he said, My masters, if only I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass on from beside your servant. Please let a little water be taken, and bathe your feet, and recline under the tree. And I will take a portion of bread, and sustain your hearts. Afterwards you shall pass on, because you have passed by your servant. And they said, So shall you do as you have spoken. And Abraham hastened to the tent to Sarah, and he said, Hasten 3 seah of meal, and find flour, knead, and make cakes. And to the cattle did Abraham run, and he took a calf tender and beneficial, and he gave it to the youth, and he hastened to prepare it. And he took cream and milk, and the calf that he had prepared, and he placed them before them, and he was standing over them under the tree, and they ate. And they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, your wife Sarah will have a son. And Sarah heard from the entrance of the tent, and it was behind him. And now Abraham and Sarah were old, coming on in years. Sarah had ceased to have the way of the women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have become worn out, will I have smooth flesh? And also my master is old. And Elohim said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Is it truly true that I will give birth, although I am old? Is anything hidden from Elohim? At the appointed time I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. And Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, because she was afraid. And Elohim said, No, but you laughed. And the men arose from there, and they looked upon Sodom, and Abraham went with them to escort them. And Elohim said, Shall I conceal from Abraham what I am doing? And Abraham will become a great and powerful nation, and all the nations of the world will be blessed in him. For I have known I have known him because he commands his sons and his household after him, that they should keep the way of Elohim to perform righteousness and justice, in order that Elohim bring upon Abraham that which Elohim spoke concerning him. And Elohim said, Since the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah has become great, and since their sin has become very grave, I will descend now and see whether according to her cry which has come to me they have done. I will wreak destruction upon them, and if not, I will know. And the men turned from there and went to Sodom, and Abraham was still standing before Elohim. And Abraham approached and said, Will you even destroy the righteous with the wicked? Perhaps there are 50 righteous men in the midst of the city. Will you even destroy and not forgive the place for the sake of the 50 righteous men who are in its midst? Distant be it from you to do such a thing as this, to put to death the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be like the wicked. Distant be it from you. Will the judge of the entire earth not perform justice? And Elohim said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous men within the city, I will forgive the entire place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have commenced to speak to Elohim, although I am dust and ashes. Perhaps the 50 righteous men will be missing 5. Will you destroy the entire city because of 5? And Elohim said, I will not destroy it if I find there 45. And he continued further to speak to Elohim, and he said, Perhaps 40 will be found there. And Elohim said, I will not do it for the sake of the 40. And he said, Please let the Elohim's wrath not be kindled, and I will speak. Perhaps 30 will be found there. And Elohim said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have desired to speak to Elohim. Perhaps 20 will be found there. And Elohim said, I will not destroy that for the sake of the 20. And he said, Please let Elohim's wrath not be kindled, and I will speak yet this time. Perhaps 10 will be found there. And Elohim said, I will not destroy for the sake of the 10. And Elohim departed when Elohim finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. And the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And Lot saw and arose towards them, and he prostrated himself on his face to the ground. And he said, Behold now, my masters, please turn to your servant's house, and stay overnight and wash your feet, and you shall arise early and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will stay overnight in the street. And he urged them strongly, and they turned into him, and came into his house, and he made them a feast, and he baked unleavened cakes, and they ate. When they had not yet retired, and the people of Sodom surrounded the house, both young and old, the entire populace from every end of the city. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and let us be intimate with them. And Lot came out to them to the entrance, and he shut the door behind him. And he said, My brethren, please do not do evil. Behold now, I have 2 daughters who were not intimate with a man. I will bring them out to you, and do to them as you see fit. Only to these men do nothing, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, Back away. And they said, This one came to sojourn, and he is judging. Now we will do even worse with you than with them. And they pressed hard upon the man Lot, and they drew near to break the door. And the men stretched forth their hands, and they brought Lot to them to the house, and they shut the door. And the men who were at the entrance of the house they struck with blindness, both small and great, and they toiled in vain to find the entrance. And the men said to Lot, Whom else do you have here? A son-in-law, your sons and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, take out of the place. For we are destroying this place, because their cry has become great before Elohim, and Elohim has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went forth and spoke to his sons-in-law, the suitors of his daughters, and he said, Arise, go forth from this place, for Elohim is destroying the city. But he seemed like a comedian in the eyes of his sons-in-law. And as the dawn arose, the angels pressed Lot, saying, Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you perish because of the iniquity of the city. But he tarried, and the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hand of his 2 daughters out of Elohim's pity for him. And they took him out and placed him outside the city. And it came to pass, when they took them outside, that he said, Flee for your life, do not look behind you, and do not stand in the entire plain. Flee to the mountain, lest you perish. And Lot said to them, Please do not, O master. Behold now, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness which you have done with me to sustain my soul. But I cannot flee to the mountain, lest the evil overtake me and I die. Behold now, the city is near to flee there, and it is small. Let me flee there. Is it not small? And my soul will survive. And Elohim said to him, Behold, I have favored you also as regards this matter, and that I will not overturn the city that you have mentioned. Hasten, flee there, for I will not be able to do anything until you arrive there. Therefore he named the city Zoar. So they came out upon the earth, and Lot came to Zoar. And Elohim caused to rain down upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Elohim from heaven. And Elohim turned over these cities and the entire plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and the vegetation of the ground. And his wife looked from behind, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham arose early in the matin to the place where he had stood before Elohim, and he looked over the face of Sodom and Gomorrah and over the entire face of the land of the plain, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the earth had risen like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham, and Elohim sent Lot out of the midst of the destruction, when Elohim overturned the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up from Zoar, and he dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar, so he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the elder said to the younger, Our fire is old, and there is no man on earth to come upon us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us give our far wine to drink, and let us lie with him, and let us bring to life seed from our far. And they gave their far wine to drink on that night, and the elder came and lay with her far, and he did not know of her lying down or of her rising up. And it came to pass on the mañana that the elder said to the younger, Behold, last night I lay with my far. Let us give him wine to drink tonight too, and come lie with him, and let us bring to life seed from our far. So they gave their far to drink on that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know of her lying down or of her rising up. And Lot's 2 daughters conceived from their far. And the elder bore a son, and she named him Moab. He is the far of Moab unto this day. And the younger she too bore a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the far of the children of Ammon until this day. And Abraham traveled from there to the land of the south, and he dwelt between Kadesh and between Shur, and he had sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said about Sarah his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech the king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. And Elohim came to Abimelech in a dream of the night, and Elohim said to him, Behold, you are going to die because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a married woman. And Abimelech had not come near to her, and he said, O master, will you kill even a righteous nation? Did he not say to me, She is my sister? And she said, He is my brother. With the innocence of my heart and with the purity of my hands have I done this. And Elohim said to him in a dream, I too know that you did this with the innocence of your heart, and I too withheld you from sitting to me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. And now return the man's wife, because he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you know that you will surely die, you and all that is yours. And Abimelech arose early in the matin, and he summoned all his servants, and he spoke all these words in their ears. And the men were very frightened. And Abimelech summoned Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And what have I sinned against you? That you have brought upon me and upon my kingdom a great sin. Deeds that are not done, you have done to me. And Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you see that you did this thing? And Abraham said, For I said, Surely there is no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. And also indeed she is my sister, the daughter of my far, but not the daughter of my more. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, when Elohim caused me to wander from my far's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness which you shall do to me, that you shall do with me. Whither we come, say about me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took flocks and cattle and menservants and maidservants, and gave them to Abraham, and restored to him his wife Sarah. And Abimelech said, Here is my land before you, wherever it pleases you, you may dwell. And to Sarah he said, Behold, I have given 1,000 portions of silver to your brother. Behold, it is to you a covering of the eyes for all who are with you, and with all you shall contend. And Abraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech and his wife and his handmaids, and they gave birth. For Elohim had shut every womb of Abimelech's household because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And Elohim remembered Sarah as Elohim had said, and Elohim did to Sarah as Elohim had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the time of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham named his son whom he had born, and Abraham named his son who had been born to him, whom Sarah had born to him, Yitzhak. And Abraham circumcised his son Yitzhak when he was 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yitzhak was born to him. And Sarah said, Elohim has made joy for me, whoever hears will rejoice over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne a son to his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Yitzhak was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, making merry. And Sarah said to Abraham, Drive out this handmaid and her son, for the son of this handmaid shall not inherit with my son, with Yitzhak. But the matter greatly displeased Abraham concerning his son. And Elohim said to Abraham, be not displeased concerning the lad and concerning your handmaid. Whatever Sarah tells you, hearken to her voice, for in Yitzhak will be called your seed. But also the son of the handmaid I will make into a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham arose early in the matin, and he took bread and a leather pouch of water, and he gave them to Hagar. He placed them on her shoulder, and the child, and he sent her away. And she went and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. And the water was depleted from the leather pouch, and she cast the child under one of the bushes. And she went and sat down from a distance, at about the distance of 2 bow shots, for she said, let me not see the child's death. And she sat from a distance, and she raised her voice and wept. And Elohim heard the lad's voice, and an angel of God, of Elohim, called to Hagar from heaven, and said to her, what is troubling you, Hagar? Fear not, for Elohim has heard the lad's voice in the place where he is. Rise, pick up the lad, and grasp your hand upon him, for I shall make him into a great nation. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the pouch with water, and gave the lad to drink. And Elohim was with the lad, and he grew, and he dwelt in the desert, and he became an archer. And he dwelt in the desert of Paran, and his mother took for him a wife from the land of Egypt. Now it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, his general, said to Abraham, saying, Elohim is with you in all that you do, and now swear to me by Elohim that you will not lie to me, or to my son, or to my grandson. According to the kindness that I have done with you, you shall do with me, and with the lad wherein you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham contended with Abimelech about the well of water that the servants of Abimelech had forcibly seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who did this thing, neither did you tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. And Abraham took flocks and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and they formed a covenant. And Abraham placed 7 ewe by themselves, 7 ewe lambs by themselves. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what are these 7 ewe lambs which you have placed by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs you shall take from my hand, in order that it be to me for a witness that I dug this well. Therefore he named that place Beersheba, for they both swore. And they formed a covenant in Beersheba, and Abimelech and Phicol, his general, arose, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted an eshel in Beersheba, and he called there in the name of Elohim, the God of the world. And Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines for many days. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim tested Abraham, and Elohim said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. And Elohim said, please take your son, your only one, whom you love, yea, Yitzhak, and go away to the land of Moriah, and bring him up there for a burnt offering on one of the mountains, of which I will tell you. And Abraham arose early in the matin, and he saddled his donkey, and he took his 2 young men with him, and Yitzhak his son, and he split wood for a burnt offering, and he arose and went to the place of which Elohim had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from a distance. And Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will prostrate ourselves and return to you. And Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering, and he placed it upon his son Yitzhak, and he took into his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went together. And Yitzhak spoke to Abraham his father, and he said, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. And he said, here are the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, Elohim will provide for Elohim the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And they both went together. And they came to the place of which Elohim had spoken to him, and Abraham built the altar there, and arranged the wood, and he bound Yitzhak his son, and placed him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slaughter his son. And an angel of Elohim called to him from heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not stretch forth your hand to the lad, nor do the slightest thing to him, for now I know that you are a God-fearing man, and you did not withhold your son, your only one, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw, and lo, there was a ram, and after that it was caught in a tree by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham named that place Elohim will see, as it is said, to this day, on the mountain Elohim will be seen. And an angel of Elohim called to Abraham a second time from heaven. And he said, by myself I have sworn, says Elohim, that because you have done this thing, and you did not withhold your son, your only one, that I will surely bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand that is on the seashore, and your descendants will inherit the cities of their enemies. And through your children shall be blessed all the nations of the world, because you hearken to my voice. And Abraham returned to his young men, and they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham remained in Beersheba. And it came to pass after these matters that it was told to Abraham, saying, behold, Milcah, she also bore sons to Nahor your brother, Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the far of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Yidlaf, and Betuel. And Betuel begot Rivkah. These 8 did Milcah bear to Nachor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, had also given birth to Tebah, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Makkah. Chandogya Upanishad 4. The syllable Om, called the Udgita, should be meditated upon, for people sing the Udgita beginning with Om. Now follows the detailed explanation of this syllable. The angels afraid of death entered upon the threefold knowledge. They covered themselves with the metrical hymns. Because they covered Achadayan themselves with the hymns are called Chandas. As a fisherman might observe a fish in shallow water, so doth observed the angels in the Rik, the Yadrus, and the Saman. They too came to know this, arose from the Rik, the Yadrus, and the Saman, and entered the Svara, Om, alone. When a man has mastered the Rig Veda, he loudly utters Om. He does the same when he has mastered the Sama Veda and the Yajur Veda. The Svara is the syllable Om. It is eternally living and fearless. The angels, by entering it, become eternally living and fearless. He who, knowing this, sings the honors of the syllable Om enters the same syllable, called the Svara, which is eternally living and fearless. Having entered it, he becomes eternally living as the angels are eternally living. Bhagavad Gita 4. Sri Krishna says, this eternal yoga that I taught to Vivasvat taught it to Manu, and Manu taught it to Ikshvaku. Thus handed down from one to another, it became known to the royal sages, but through long lapse of time, O destroyer of foes, this yoga has been lost to the world. The same ancient yoga I have told you today, for you are my devotee and friend, and it is a supreme secret. Arjuna says, later was your birth and early the birth of Vivasvat. How then am I to understand that you taught him in the beginning? Sri Krishna says, many births have I passed through, O Arjuna, and so have you. I know them all, but you know them not, O scorcher of foes. Though I am unborn and eternal by nature, and though I am the master of all beings, yet subjugating my Prakriti, I accept birth through my own Maya. Whenever there is a decline of Dharma, O Bharata, and a rise in Adharma, I incarnate myself. For the protection of the benevolent, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of Dharma, I am born in every age. Whoso knows in the true light my sacred birth and action will not be born again. When he leaves his body, he will attain me, O Arjuna. Freed from passion, fear, and anger, absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, and purified by the fire of knowledge, many have become one with my being. In whatsoever way men approach me, even so do I reward them, for it is my path, O Partha, that men follow in all things. Those who desire success in their works honor the angels here, for quickly in this world of man comes success from works. The four castes were created by me according to the division of gunas and karma. Though I am their creator, yet know that I neither act nor change. Action does not defile me, nor do I long for its fruit. He who knows me thus is not bound by his action. Men of old who sought liberation knew this and did their work. Therefore do your work as the ancients did in former times. Even the wise are perplexed as to what is action and what inaction. Therefore I will tell you what action is, that you may know and be freed from evil. For verily one has to understand what action truly is, and likewise what forbidden action is, and also what inaction is. Hard to understand is the way of action. He who sees inaction in action, and action in inaction, he is wise amongst men. He is a yogi, and he has performed all action. He whose undertakings are all free from desires and self-will, and whose works are consumed in the fire of knowledge, he by the wise is called a sage. Giving up attachment to the fruit of action, ever content and dependent on none, though engaged in work, he does no work at all. Free from desire, with body and mind controlled, and surrendering all possessions, he incurs no sin through mere bodily activity. Satisfied with what comes to him, without any effort on his part, rising above the pairs of opposites, free from envy, and even-minded in success and failure, though acting he is not bound. The works of a man whose attachment is gone, who is free, and whose mind is established in yoga, melt away entirely, being done as for Yaya. To him, Brahman is the offering, and Brahman is the oblation, and it is Brahman who offers the oblation in the fire Brahman. Brahman alone is attained by him who thus sees Brahman in action. Some yogis offer oblations to the devas alone, whilst others in the fire of Brahman offer the self by the self. Some offer oblations of hearing and the other senses in the fires of restraint, and some offer sound and other sensations in the fires of their senses. Some again offer all the actions of the senses and the functions of the prana as oblations in the fire of self-control kindled by knowledge. Some likewise offer as oblations their wealth, austerity, and yoga, whilst others of disciplined minds and severe vows offer their scriptural study and knowledge. Some again, constantly practicing the regulation of prana, offer the oblation of prana into apana, and apana into prana, or stop the passage of both prana and apana. Yet others, restricting their food, offer their pranas in the pranas. All these know what offering means, and by offering are their sins consumed. Eating of the Amrita, the remnant of the offering, they go to the eternal Brahman. This world is not for him who makes no offering, O best of Kurus, much less the other. Thus many kinds of offering are strewn through the pages of the Vedas. Know them all to be born of action, and you will be free. The knowledge offering is superior to all material offerings, O scorcher of foes, for all works without exception culminate in knowledge. Learn it by prostration, by inquiry, and by service. The wise who have seen the truth will teach you that knowledge. When you have known it, O Pandava, you will not again fall into delusion, and through it you will see all beings in yourself and also in me. Even if you are the most sinful of sinners, yet by the raft of knowledge alone you will be borne over all sin. As a fire well kindled reduces wood to ashes, so, O Arjuna, does the fire of knowledge reduce all works to ashes. Verily there exists no purifier on earth equal to knowledge. A man who becomes perfect in yoga finds it within himself in the course of time. He who is full of faith and zeal and has subdued his senses obtains knowledge. Having obtained knowledge, he soon attains the supreme peace. But the man who is ignorant and without faith and without doubting goes to ruin. Not this world nor the world beyond, nor happiness is for the doubting soul. Works do not bind the man, O Dhananjaya, who relinquishes action through yoga, whose doubts are destroyed by knowledge, and who is self-possessed. Therefore, with the sword of knowledge, cut asunder this doubt about the self, born of ignorance and residing in your heart, and devote yourself to yoga. Arise, O Bharata. Tao Te Ching 4. The Tao is empty. When utilized, it is not filled up. So deep, it seems to be the source of all things. It blunts the sharpness, unravels the knots, dims the glare, mixes the dust. So indistinct it seems to exist. I do not know whose offspring it is. Its image is the predecessor of the emperor. L'Union 4. The master says, of neighborhoods, benevolence is the most beautiful. How can the man be considered wise who, when he has the choice, does not settle in benevolence? The master says, one who is not benevolent cannot remain long straitened circumstances, nor can he remain long in easy circumstances. The benevolent man is attracted to benevolence because he feels at home in it. The wise man is attracted to benevolence because he finds it to his advantage. The master says, it is only the benevolent man who is capable of liking or disliking other men. The master says, if a man sets his heart on benevolence, he will be free from evil. The master says, wealth and high station are what men desire, but unless I got them in the right way, I would not remain in them. Poverty and low station are what men dislike, but even if I did not get them in the right way, I would not try to escape from them. If the gentleman forsakes benevolence, in what way can he make a name for himself? The gentleman never deserts benevolence, not even for as long as it takes to eat a meal. If he hurries and stumbles, one may be sure that it is in benevolence that he does so. The master says, I have never met a man who finds benevolence attractive or a man who finds unbenevolence repulsive. A man who finds benevolence attractive cannot be surpassed. A man who finds unbenevolence repulsive can perhaps be counted as benevolent, for he could not allow what is not benevolent to contaminate his person. Is there a man who, for the space of a single day, is able to devote all his strength to benevolence? I have not come across such a man whose strength proves insufficient for the task. There must be such cases of insufficient strength, only I have not come across them. The Master says, in his errors a man is true to type. Observe the errors and you will know the man. The Master says, he has not lived in vain who dies the day he is told about the way. The Master says, there is no point in seeking the views of a gentleman who, though he sets his heart on the way, is ashamed of poor food and poor clothes. The Master says, in his dealings with the world, the gentleman is not invariably for or against anything. He is on the side of what is virtuous. The Master says, whilst the gentleman cherishes benign rule, the small man cherishes his native land. Whilst the gentleman cherishes respect for the law, the small man cherishes generous treatment. The Master says, if one is guided by gain in one's actions, one will incur much ill will. The Master says, if a man is able to govern a state by observing the rights and showing deference, what difficulties will he have in public life? If he is unable to govern a state by observing the rights and showing deference, what benefit are the rights to him? The Master says, do not worry because you have no official position. Worry about your qualifications. Do not worry because no one appreciates your abilities. Seek to be worthy of appreciation. The Master says, Tsun, there is one single thread binding my way together. Tsung assents. After the Master has gone out, the disciples ask, what did he mean? Tsung says, the way of the Master consists in doing one's best and in utilizing oneself as a measure to gauge others. That is all. The Master says, the gentleman understands what is virtuous. The small man understands what is beneficial, gainful. The Master says, when you meet someone better than yourself, turn your thoughts to becoming his equal. When you meet someone not as beneficial as you are, look within and examine your own self. The Master says, in serving your far and more, you ought to dissuade them from doing wrong in the gentlest way. If you see your advice being ignored, you should not become disobedient, but should remain reverent. You should not complain, even if in so doing you wear yourself out. The Master says, whilst your parents are alive, you should not go too distant afield in your travels. If you do, your whereabouts should always be known. The Master says, if for 3 years a man makes no changes to his father's ways, he can be said to be a benevolent son. The Master says, a man should not be ignorant of the age of far and more. It is a matter on the one hand for rejoicing and on the other for anxiety. The Master says, in antiquity, men were loath to speak. This was because they counted it shameful if their person failed to keep up with their words. The Master says, it is rare for a man to miss the mark through holding on to essentials. The Master says, the gentleman desires to be halting in speech, but quick in action. The Master says, virtue never stands alone. It is bound to have neighbors. Tzu Yu says, it is importunate with one's master Tzu Yu says, to be importunate with one's master will mean humiliation. To be importunate with one's friends will mean estrangement. Digha Nikaya, Samanya Phala Sutta 2. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Exalted One was dwelling in Rajagaha in Javaka Kamarabakcha's mango grove, together with a large company of 1,250 bhikshus. At the time, on the 15th day, Upasara, the full moon night of Kamudi, in the fourth moon, King Ajatasattu of Magadha, the son of Queen Vidiha, was sitting on the upper terrace of his palace surrounded by his ministers. There the king uttered the following joyful exclamation. How delightful, friends, is this moonlit night! How beautiful is this moonlit night! How lovely is this moonlit night! How tranquil is this moonlit night! How auspicious is this moonlit night! Is there any recluse or Brahmin that we could visit tonight, who might be able to bring peace to my mind? Thereupon one of his ministers said, Your Majesty, there is Purana Kassapa, the leader of an order, the leader of a group, the teacher of a group, well known and famous, a spiritual leader whom many people esteem as holy. He is age-long, going forth, advanced in years, in the last phase of life. Your Majesty should visit him. Perhaps he might bring peace to your mind. But when this was said, King Ajatasattu remained silent. Other ministers said, Your Majesty, there is Makali Gosala, Ajita Kasa Kambala, Pakuda Kachayana, Sanjaya Belataputa, Niganta Nataputa, the leader of an order, the leader of a group, the teacher of a group, well known and famous, a spiritual leader whom many people esteemed as holy. He is aged, long gone forth, advanced in years, in the last phase of life. Your Majesty should visit him. Perhaps he might bring peace to your mind. But when this was said, King Ajatasattu remained silent. All this time, Javaka Komarabacha sat silently, not distant from King Ajatasattu. The king then said to him, Friend Javaka, why do you keep silent? Javaka said, Your Majesty, the Exalted One, the Worthy One, the perfectly enlightened Buddha, together with a large company of 1,250 bhikshus, is now dwelling in our mango grove. A favorable report concerning him is circulating thus. The Exalted One is a worthy one, perfectly enlightened, endowed with clear knowledge and conduct, accomplished, a knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of angels and men, enlightened and exalted. Your Majesty should visit the Exalted One. Perhaps if you visit him, he might bring peace to your mind. Then get the elephant vehicles prepared, friend Javaka. Yes, Your Majesty, Javaka replied. He then had 500 female elephants prepared, as well as the king's personal bull elephant, and announced to the king, Your Majesty, your elephant vehicles are ready. Do as you think fit. King Ajatasattu then had 500 of his women mounted on the female elephants, one on each, whilst he himself mounted his personal bull elephant. With his attendants carrying torches, he went forth from Rajagaha in full royal splendor, setting out in the direction of Javaka's mango grove. When King Ajatasattu was not distant from the mango grove, he was suddenly gripped by fear, trepidation, and terror. Frightened, agitated, and terror-stricken, he said to Javaka, You aren't deceiving me, are you, friend Javaka? You aren't betraying me. You aren't about to turn me over to my enemies. How could there be such a large company of bhikshus, 1,250 bhikshus, without any sound of sneezing or coughing or any noise at all? Do not be afraid, great king. Do not be afraid. I am not deceiving you, your majesty, or betraying you, or turning you over to your enemies. Go forward, great king. Go straight forward. Those are lamps burning in the pavilion hall. Then King Ajatasattu, having gone by elephant as distant as he could, dismounted and approached the door of the pavilion hall on foot. Having approached, he asked Javaka, But where, Javaka, is the Exalted One? That is the Exalted One, great king. He is the one sitting against the middle pillar facing east in front of the company of bhikshus. King Ajatasattu then approached the Exalted One and stood to one side. As he stood there surveying the company of bhikshus, which sat in complete silence, as serene as a calm lake, he uttered the following joyful exclamation. May my son, the Prince Udayabhada, enjoy such peace as the company of bhikshus now enjoys. The Exalted One said, Do your thoughts, great king, follow the call of your affection. Venerable sir, I love my son, the Prince Udayabhada. May he enjoy such peace as the company of bhikshus now enjoys. King Ajatasattu then paid homage to the Exalted One, reverently saluted the company of bhikshus, sat down to one side, and said to the Exalted One, Venerable sir, I would like to ask the Exalted One about a certain point, if he would take the time to answer my question. Ask whatever you wish to, great king. There are, venerable sir, various crafts, such as elephant trainers, horse trainers, charioteers, archers, standard bearers, camp marshals, commandos, high royal officers, frontline soldiers, bull warriors, military heroes, mail-clad warriors, domestic slaves, confectioners, barbers, bath attendants, cooks, garland makers, laundrymen, weavers, basket makers, potters, statisticians, accountants, and various other crafts of a similar nature. All those who practice these crafts enjoy here and now the visible fruits of their crafts. They obtain happiness and enjoy themselves. and they give happiness and joy to their parents, wives, and children, and their friends and colleagues. They establish an excellent presentation of gifts to recluses and Brahmins, leading to heaven, ripening in happiness, conducing to a heavenly rebirth. Is it possible, Venerable Soul, to point out any fruit of recluseship that is similarly visible here and now? Do you remember, great king, ever asking other recluses and Brahmins this question? I do remember asking them, Venerable Sir. If it isn't troublesome for you, please tell us how they answered. It is not troublesome for me, Venerable Sir, where the Exalted One or anyone like him is present. Then speak, great king. One time I approached Purana Kassapa, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. I then asked him if he could point out any fruit of recluseship visible here and now. When I had finished speaking, Purana Kassapa said to me, Great king, if one acts or induces others to act, mutilates or induces others to mutilate, tortures or induces others to torture, inflicts sorrow or induces others to inflict sorrow, oppresses or induces others to oppress, intimidates or induces others to intimidate, if one destroys life, takes what is not given, breaks into houses, plunders wealth, commits burglary, ambushes highways, commits adultery, speaks falsehood, one does no evil. If with a razor-edged disc one were to reduce all the living beings on this earth to a single heap and pile of flesh, by doing so there would be no evil or outcome of evil. If one were to go along the south bank of the Ganges, killing and inducing others to kill, mutilating and inducing others to mutilate, torturing and inducing others to torture, by doing so there would be no evil or outcome of evil. If one were to go along the north bank of the Ganges, giving gifts and inducing others to give gifts, making offerings and inducing others to make offerings, by doing so there would be no merit or outcome of merit. By giving self-control, restraint, and truthful speech, there is no merit or outcome of merit. Thus, Venerable Sir, when I asked Purana Kassapa about the visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me his doctrine of the inefficacy of action. Venerable Sir, just as if one asked about a mango would speak about a breadfruit, or as if one asked about a breadfruit would speak about a mango, in the same way, when I asked Purana Kassapa about a visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me his doctrine of the inefficacy of action. Then, Venerable Sir, I thought to myself, one like myself should not think of troubling a recluse or Brahmin living in this realm. So I neither rejoiced in the statement of Purana Kassapa, nor did I reject it. But though I neither rejoiced in it nor rejected it, I still felt dissatisfied, yet did not utter a word of dissatisfaction. Without accepting his doctrine, without embracing it, I got up from my seat and left. Another time, Venerable Sir, I approached Makali Gosala, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. Then I asked him if he could point out a fruit of recluseship visible here and now. Another time, Venerable Sir, I approached Ajita Kesakambala, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. I then asked him if he could point out a fruit of recluseship visible here and now. When I finished speaking, Ajita Kasambala said to me, Great king, there is no giving, no offering, no liberality. There is no fruit or result of benevolent or bad actions. There is no present world, no world beyond, no more, no far, no beings who have taken rebirth. In the world there are no recluses and Brahmins of right attainment and right practice who explain this world and the world beyond on the basis of their own direct knowledge and understanding. A person is composed of the four primary elements. When he dies, the earth in his body returns to and emerges with the external body of earth. The water in his body returns to and merges with the external body of water. The fire in his body returns and merges with the external body of fire. The air in his body returns to and merges with the external body of air. His sense faculties pass over into space. Four men carry the corpse along on a bier. His eulogies are sounded until they reach the eternal ground. His bones turn pigeon-colored. His meritorious offerings end in ashes. The practice of giving is a doctrine of fools. Those who declare that there is an afterlife speak only false, empty prattle. With the breaking up of the body, the foolish and the wise alike are annihilated and utterly perish. They do not exist after death. Thus, Venerable Sir, when I asked Ajita Kasakambala about a visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me his doctrine of annihilation. Venerable Sir, just as if one asked about a mango would speak about a breadfruit, or as if one asked about a breadfruit would speak about a mango, in the same way, when I asked Ajita Kasakambala about a visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me his doctrine of annihilation. Then, Venerable Sir, I thought to myself, one like myself should not think of troubling a recluse or Brahmin living in this realm. So I neither rejoiced in the statement of Ajita Kasakambala, nor did I reject it. But though I neither rejoiced in it nor rejected it, I still felt dissatisfied, yet did not utter a word of dissatisfaction. Without accepting his doctrine, without embracing it, I got up from my seat and left. Another time, Venerable Sir, I approached Pakuda Kachayana, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. Then I asked him if he could point out a fruit of recluseship visible here and now. When I had finished speaking, Pakuda Kachayana said to me, Great King, there are 7 bodies that are unmade, unfashioned, uncreated, without a creator, barren, stable as a mountain peak, standing firm like a pillar. They do not alter, do not change, do not obstruct one another. They are incapable of causing one another either pleasure or pain, or both pleasure and pain. What are the 7? The body of earth, the body of water, the body of fire, the body of air, pleasure, pain, and the soul as the 7th. Amongst these there is no killer, nor one who causes killing, no hearer, nor one who causes hearing, no cognizer, nor one who causes cognition. If someone were to cut off another person's head with a sharp sword, he would not be taking the other's life. The sword merely passes through the space between the 7 bodies. Thus, Venerable Sir, when I asked Pakuda Kachayana about a visible fruit of recluseship, he answered me in a completely irrelevant way. Venerable Sir, just as if one asked about a mango would speak about a breadfruit, or as if one asked about a breadfruit would speak about a mango. In the same way, when I asked Pakuda Kachayana about a visible fruit of recluseship, he answered me in a completely irrelevant way. Then, Venerable Sir, I thought to myself, one like myself should not think of troubling a recluse or Brahmin living in this realm, so I neither rejoiced in the statement of Pakuda Kachayana, nor did I reject it. But though I neither rejoiced in it nor rejected it, I still felt dissatisfied, yet did not utter a word of dissatisfaction. Without accepting his doctrine, without embracing it, I got up from my seat and left. Another time, Venerable Sir, I approached Naganta Nataputa, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. I then asked him if he could point out a fruit of recluseship visible here and now. When I had finished speaking, Naganta Nataputa said to me, Great King, a Naganta, a knotless one, is restrained with a fourfold restraint. How so? Herein, Great King, a Naganta is restrained with regard to all water. He is endowed with the avoidance of all evil. He is cleansed by the avoidance of all evil. He is suffused with the avoidance of all evil. Great King, when a Naganta is restrained with this fourfold restraint, he is called a knotless one who is self-perfected, self-controlled, and self-established. Thus, Venerable Sir, when I asked Naganta Nataputa about a visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me the fourfold restraint. Venerable Sir, just as if one asked about a mango would speak about a breadfruit, or as if one asked about a breadfruit would speak about a mango. In the same way, when I asked Naganta Nataputa about a visible fruit of recluseship, he explained to me the fourfold restraint. Then, Venerable Sir, I thought to myself, one like myself should not think of troubling a recluse or Brahmin living in this realm. So I neither rejoiced in the statement of Naganta Nataputa, nor did I reject it. But though I neither rejoiced in it nor rejected it, I still felt dissatisfied, yet did not utter a word of dissatisfaction. Without accepting his doctrine, without embracing it, I got up from my seat and left. Another time, Venerable Sir, I approached Sanjaya Balataputa, exchanged greetings and courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. I then asked him if he could point out any fruit of recluseship visible here and now. When I had finished speaking, Sanjaya Balataputa said to me, If you ask me, is there a world beyond? If I thought there is a world beyond, I would declare to you there is a world beyond. But I do not say it is that way, nor it is that way, nor it is otherwise. I do not say it is not so, nor do I say it is not so. Similarly, you might ask me the following questions. Is there no world beyond? Is it that there both is and is not a world beyond? Is it that there neither is nor is not a world beyond? Are there beings who have taken rebirth? Are there no beings who have taken rebirth? Is it that there both are and are not beings who have taken rebirth? Is it that there neither are nor are not beings who have taken rebirth? Is there fruit and result of benevolent and bad actions? Is there no fruit and result of benevolent and bad actions? Is there both are and are not fruit of and result of benevolent and bad actions? Is it that there both are and are not fruit and result of benevolent and bad actions? Is it that there neither are nor are not fruit and result of benevolent and bad actions? Does the Tathagata exist after death? Does the Tathagata not exist after death? Does the Tathagata both exist and not exist after death? Does the Tathagata neither exist nor not exist after death? If I thought that it was so, I would declare to you it is so, but I do not say it is this way, nor it is that way, nor it is otherwise. I do not say it is not so, nor do I say it is not so. Thus, Venerable Sir, when I asked Sanjaya Balataputa about a visible fruit of recluseship, he answered me evasively. Venerable Sir, just as if one asked about a mango, would speak about a breadfruit, or as if one asked about a breadfruit would speak about a mango. In the same way, when I asked Sanjaya Balataputa about a visible fruit of recluseship, he answered me evasively. Then, Venerable Sir, I thought to myself, one like myself should not think of troubling a recluse or Brahmin living in this realm. So I neither rejoiced in the statement of Sanjaya Balataputa, nor did I reject it. But though I neither rejoiced in it nor rejected it, I still felt dissatisfied, yet did not utter a word of dissatisfaction. Without accepting his doctrine, without embracing it, I got out from my seat and left. So, Venerable Sir, I asked the Exalted One, there are, Venerable Sir, various crafts such as elephant trainers, horse trainers, charioteers, archers, standard bearers, camp marshals, commandos, high royal officers, frontline soldiers, bull warriors, military heroes, mail-clad warriors, domestic slaves, confectioners, barbers, bath attendants, cooks, garland makers, laundrymen, weavers, basket makers, potters, statisticians, accountants, and various other crafts of a similar nature. All those who practice these crafts enjoy here and now the visible fruits of their craft. They obtain happiness and joy themselves, and they give happiness and joy to their parents, their wives and children, their friends and colleagues. They establish an excellent presentation of gifts to recluses and Brahmins, leading to heaven, ripening in happiness, conducing to a heavenly rebirth. Is it possible, Venerable Sir, to point out any fruit of recluseship that is similarly visible here and now? It is, great king. But let me question you about this matter. Answer as you think fit. What do you think, great king? Suppose you have a slave, a workman who rises up before you, retires after you, does whatever you want, acts always for your pleasure, speaks politely to you, and is ever on the lookout to see that you are satisfied. The thought might occur to him, it is wonderful and marvelous, the destiny and result of meritorious deeds. For this King Ajatasattu is a human being, and I too am a human being. Yet King Ajatasattu enjoys himself fully endowed and supplied with the 5 strands of sense pleasures, as if he were an angel, whilst I am his slave, his workman, rising before him, retiring after him, doing whatever he wants, acting always for his pleasure, speaking politely to him, ever on the lookout to see that he is satisfied. I could be like him if I were to do meritorious deeds. Let me then shave off my hair and beard, put on saffron robes, and go forth from home to homelessness. After some time he shaves off his hair and beard, puts on saffron robes, and goes forth from home to homelessness. Having gone forth, he dwells restrained in body, speech, and mind, content with the simplest food and shelter, delighting in solitude. Suppose your men were to report all this to you. Would you say, bring that man back to me, men? Let him again become my slave, my workman, rising before me, retiring after me, doing whatever I want, acting always for my pleasure, speaking politely to me, ever on the lookout to see that I am satisfied? Certainly not, Venerable Sir. Rather, we would pay homage to him, rise up out of respect for him, invite him to a seat, and invite him to accept from us robes, alms, food, dwelling, and medicinal requirements. And we would provide him righteous protection, defense, and security. What do you think, great king? If such is the case, is there or is there not a visible fruit of recluseship? There certainly is, Venerable Sir. This great king is the first fruit of recluseship visible here and now that I point out to you. Is it possible, Venerable Sir, to point out some other fruit of recluseship visible here and now? It is, great king. But let me ask you about this matter. Answer as you think fit. What do you think, great king? Suppose there is a tiller of soil, a householder who pays taxes to maintain the royal revenue. The thought might occur to him, it is wonderful and marvelous, the destiny and result of meritorious deeds. For this King Ajatasattu is a human being, and I too am a human being. Yet King Ajatasattu enjoys himself fully endowed and supplied with the 5 strands of sense pleasure, as if he were an angel, whilst I am a tiller of soil, a householder who pays taxes to maintain the royal revenue. I could be like him if I were to do meritorious deeds. Let me then shave off my hair and beard, put on saffron robes, and go forth from home to homelessness. After some time he abandons his accumulation of wealth, be it large or small, abandons his circle of relatives, be it large or small. He shaves off his hair and beard, puts on saffron robes, and goes forth from home to homelessness. Having gone forth, he dwells restrained in body, speech, and mind, content with the simplest food and shelter, delighting in solitude. Suppose your men were to report all this to you. Would you say, bring that man back to me, men? Let him again become a tiller of soil, a householder who pays taxes to maintain the royal revenue? Certainly not, Venerable Sir. Rather, we would pay homage to him, rise up out of respect for him, invite him to a seat, and invite him to accept from us robes, alms, food, dwelling, and medicinal requirements. And we would provide him with righteous protection, defense, and security. What do you think, great king? If that such is the case, is there or is there not a visible fruit of recluseship? There certainly is, Venerable Sir. This great king is the second fruit of recluseship visible here and now that I point out to you. Is it possible, Venerable Sir, to point out any other fruit of recluseship visible here and now, further excellent and sublime than these 2 fruits? It is possible. Listen, great king, and attend carefully, and I will speak. Yes, venerable sir, King Ajatasattu replied to the exalted one. Herein, great king, a Tathagata arises in the world, a worthy one, perfectly enlightened, endowed with clear knowledge and conduct, accomplished, a knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of men, to be tamed, teacher of angels and men, enlightened and exalted. Having realized by his own direct knowledge this world with its angels, its Mars, and its Brahmas, this generation with its recluses and Brahmins, its rulers and people, he makes it known to others. He teaches the Dhamma that is benevolent in the beginning, benevolent in the middle, and benevolent in the end. Possessing meaning and phrasing, he reveals the holy life that is fully complete and purified. A householder or a householder's son or one born into some other family hears the Dhamma. Having heard the Dhamma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Endowed with such faith, he reflects, the household life is crowded, a path of dust. Going forth is like the open air. It is not easy for one dwelling at home to lead the perfectly complete, perfectly purified holy life, bright as a polished conch. Let me then shave off my hair and beard, put on saffron robes, and go forth from home to homelessness. After some time, he abandons his accumulation of wealth, be it large or small. He abandons his circle of relatives, be it large or small. He shaves off his hair and beard, puts on saffron robes, and goes forth from home to homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he lives restrained by the restraint of the patimoksha, possessed of proper behavior and reserve. Having taken up the rules of training, he trains himself in them, seeing danger in the slightest faults. He comes to be endowed with wholesome bodily and verbal action. His livelihood is purified, and he is possessed of virtuous discipline. He guards the doors of his sense faculties, is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension, and is content. And how, great king, is the bhikshu possessed of virtuous discipline? Herein, great king, having abandoned the destruction of life, the bhikshu abstains from the destruction of life. He has laid down the rod and the weapon, and dwells conscientious, full of kindness, sympathetic for the well-being of all living beings. This pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned taking what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. Accepting and expecting only what is given, he lives in honesty with a pure mind. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned in celibacy, he leads the holy life of celibacy. He dwells aloof and abstains from the vulgar practice of sexual intercourse. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned false speech, he abstains from falsehood. He speaks only the truth. He lives devoted to truth, trustworthy and reliable. He does not deceive anyone in the world. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned slander, he abstains from slander. He does not repeat elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide others from the people here, nor does he repeat here what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these from the people there. Thus he is a reconciler of those who are divided and a promoter of friendships, rejoicing, delighting, and exulting in concord. He speaks only words that are conducive to concord. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. He speaks only such words as are gentle, pleasing to the ear, endearing, going to the heart, polite, amiable, and agreeable to the many folk. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Having abandoned idle chatter, he abstains from idle chatter. He speaks at the right time, speaks what is factual and beneficial, speaks on the Dharma and the discipline. His words are worth treasuring. They are entirely backed by reasons, measured and connected with the benevolent. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. He abstains from damaging seed and plant life. He eats only in one part of the day, refraining from food at night and from eating at improper times. He abstains from dancing, singing instrumental music, and from witnessing unsuitable shows. He abstains from wearing garlands, embellishing himself with scents, and beautifying himself with unguents. He abstains from high and luxurious beds and seats. He abstains from accepting gold and silver. He abstains from accepting uncooked grain, raw meat, women and girls, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, fowl and swine, elephants, cattle, horses, and mares. He abstains from accepting fields and lands. He abstains from running messages and errands. He abstains from buying and selling. He abstains from dealing with false weights, false metals, and false measures. He abstains from the crooked ways of bribery, deception, and fraud. He abstains from mutilating, executing, imprisoning, robbery, plunder, and violence. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, continually cause damage to seed and plant life, to plants propagated from roots, stems, joints, buds, and seeds, he abstains from damaging seed and plant life. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of stored up treasures, such as stored up food, drinks, garments, vehicles, bedding, scents, and comestibles, he abstains from the utilization of stored up treasures. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, attend unsuitable shows, such as shows featuring dancing, singing, or instrumental music, theatrical performances, narrations of legends, music played by hand clapping, cymbals and drums, picture houses, acrobatic performances, combats of elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, goats, rams, cocks, and quails, stick fights, boxing and wrestling, sham fights, roll calls, ballets, and regimental reviews. He abstains from attending such unsuitable shows. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas several classes of Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, indulge in the following games and recreations: Atapada, Dasapada, Akasa, Parihara Pata, Santika, Kalika, Gatika, Salakahata, Aka, Pangachira, Vangaka, Moksha, Chika, Chingolika, Patalaka, Rataka, Danuka, Akarika, Manasika, Yatavaja. He abstains from such games that are a basis for negligence. This too pertains to his virtue of discipline. Whereas some Bhikkhus and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of high and luxurious beds and seats, such as spacious couches, thrones with animal figures carved on the supports, long-haired coverlets, multicolored patchwork coverlets, white woolen coverlets embroidered with flowers, quilts stuffed with cotton, woolen coverlets embroidered with animal figures, woolen coverlets with hair on both sides or on one side, bedspreads embroidered with gems, silk coverlets, dance hall carpets, elephant, horse, or chariot rugs, rugs of antelope skins, choice spreads made of Kadali deer hides, spreads with red awnings overhead, couches with red cushions for head and feet. He abstains from such utilization of such high and luxurious beds and seats. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of such devices for embellishing and beautifying themselves as the following: rubbing scented powders into the body, massaging with oils, bathing in perfumed water, kneading the limbs, mirrors, ointments, garland scents, unguents, face powders, makeup, bracelets, headbands, decorated walking sticks, ornamented medicine tubes, rapiers, soleil shades, embroidered sandals, turbans, diadems, necktail whisks, and long fringed white robes. He abstains from the utilization of such devices for embellishment and beautification. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, engage in frivolous chatter, such as talk about kings, thieves, and ministers of state, talk about armies, dangers, and wars, talk about food, drink, garments, and lodgings, talk about garlands and scents, talk about relations, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, and countries, talk about women, and talk about heroes, street talk, and talk by the well, talk about those departed in days gone by, rambling chit-chat, speculations about the world and about the sea, talk about gain and loss. He abstains from such frivolous chatter. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, engage in wrangling argumentation, saying to one another, "You don't understand this doctrine and discipline. It is I who understand this doctrine and discipline. How can you understand this doctrine and discipline? You're practicing the wrong way, I'm practicing the right way. I'm being consistent, you're inconsistent. What should have been said first, you said last. What should have been said last, you said first. What you took so long to think out has been confuted. Your doctrine has been refuted, you're defeated. Go try to save your doctrine, or disentangle yourself now if you can." He abstains from such wrangling argumentation. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in running messages and errands for kings, ministers of state, kachas, Brahmins, householders, or youths who command them, "Go here, go there, take this bring that from there." He abstains from running such messages and errands. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in scheming, talking, hinting, belittling others, and pursuing gain with gain. He abstains from such kinds of scheming and talking. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood, by such base arts as prophesying long life, prosperity, or the reverse from the marks on a person's limbs, hands, feet, and additionally, divining by means of omens and signs, making auguries on the basis of thunderbolts and celestial portents, interpreting ominous dreams, telling fortunes from marks on the body, making auguries from the marks on cloth gnawed by mice, offering fire oblations, offering oblations from a ladle, offering oblations of husks, rice powder, rice grains, ghee, and oil to the angels, offering oblations from the mouth, offering blood offerings to the angels, making predictions based on the fingertips, determining whether the site for a proposed house or garden is propitious or not, making predictions for officers of state, laying demons in a cemetery, laying ghosts, knowledge of charms to be pronounced by one living in an earthen house, snake charming, the poison craft, scorpion craft, rat craft, bird craft, crow craft, foretelling the number of years that a man has to live, reciting charms to give protection from arrows, reciting charms to understand the language of animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as interpreting the significance of the color, shape, and other features of the following items to determine whether they portend to fortune or misfortune for their owners: gems, garment, staffs, swords, spears, arrows, bows, other weapons, women, men, boys, girls, slaves, slave women, elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, fowl, quails, lizards, earrings, or house gables, tortoises, and other animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as making predictions to the effect that the king will march forth, the king will return, our king will attack, and the enemy king will retreat, The enemy king will attack, and our enemy king will retreat. Our king will be triumph, and the enemy king will be defeated. The enemy king will triumph, and our king will be defeated. Thus there will be victory for one and defeat for the other. That he abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as predicting. There will be an eclipse of the moon, an eclipse of the soleil, an eclipse of a constellation. The soleil and the moon will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of the soleil and moon. The constellations will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of a constellation. There will be a fall of meteors. There will be a sky blaze. There will be an earthquake. There will be an earth roar. There will be a rising and setting, a darkening and brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. Such will be the result of the moon's eclipse, and such the result of the soleil's eclipse, and so on down to which such will be the result in the rising and setting, darkening, brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, earn their living by a wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as predicting. There will be an abundant rain, there will be a drought, there will be a beneficial harvest, there will be a famine, there will be security, there will be danger, there will be sickness, there will be health. Or they earn their living by accounting, computation, calculation, the composing of poetry, and speculations about the world. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as arranging auspicious dates for marriages, both those in which the bride is brought home and those in which she is sent out, arranging auspicious dates for betrothals and divorces, arranging auspicious dates for the accumulation or expenditure of money, reciting charms to make people lucky or unlucky, rejuvenating the fetuses of abortive women, reciting spells to bind a man's tongue, to paralyze his jaws, to make him lose control over his hands, or to bring on deafness, obtaining irregular answers to questions by means of a mirror, a girl, or an angel, worshipping the soleil, worshipping Mahabrahma, bringing forth flames from the mouth, invoking the angel of luck. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by a wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as promising gifts to deities in return for favors, fulfilling such promises, demonology, reciting spells after entering an earthen house, inducing virility and impotence, preparing and consecrating sites for a house, giving ceremonial mouthwashes and ceremonial bathing, offering offertory fires, administering medics, purgatives, and expectorants, and phlegmagogues, administering medicines through the ear and through the nose, administering ointments and counter ointments, practicing fine surgery on the eyes and ears, practicing general surgery on the body, practicing as a children's doctor. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Great king, the bhikshu who is thus possessed of virtuous discipline, sees no danger anywhere in regard to himself and in regard to his restraint by virtuous discipline. Just as the head anointed noble warrior who has defeated his enemy sees no danger anywhere from his enemy, so the bhikshu who is thus possessed of virtuous discipline sees no danger anywhere in regard to his restraint by virtuous discipline. Endowed with his noble aggregate of virtuous discipline, he experiences within himself a blameless happiness. In this way, great king, the bhikshu is possessed of virtuous discipline. And how, great king, does the bhikshu guard the doors of his sense faculties? Herein, great king, having seen a form with the eye, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the eye, on evil and wholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices the restraint, guards the faculty of the eye, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the eye. Having heard a sound with the ear, having smelled an odor with the nose, having tasted a flavor with the tongue, having touched a tangible object with the body, having cognized a mind object with the mind, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the mind, evil and wholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the mind, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the mind. Endowed with his noble restraint of the sense faculties, he experiences within himself an unblemished happiness. In this way, great king, the bhikshu guards the doors of the sense faculties. And how, great king, is the bhikshu endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension? Herein, great king, in going forward and returning, the bhikshu acts with clear comprehension. And looking ahead and looking aside, he acts with clear comprehension. And bending and stretching the limbs, he acts with clear comprehension. And wearing his robes and cloak and utilizing his alms bowl, he acts with clear comprehension. In eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, he acts with clear comprehension. In defecating and urinating, he acts with clear comprehension. And going, standing, sitting, lying down, waking up, speaking, and remaining silent, he acts with clear comprehension. In this way, great king of the bhikshu is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension. And how, great king, is the bhikshu content? Hearing, great king, a bhikshu is content with robes to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him, just as a bird, wherever it goes, flies with its wings as its only burden. In the same way, a bhikshu is content with robes to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him. In this way, great king, the bhikshu is content. Endowed with this noble aggregate of virtuous discipline, this noble restraint over the sense faculties, this noble mindfulness and clear comprehension, and this noble contentment, he resorts to a secluded dwelling, a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside cave, a cremation ground, a jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. After returning from his alms route, following his meals, he sits down crosses his legs, holds his body erect, and sets up mindfulness before him. Having abandoned covetousness for the world, he dwells with a mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, he dwells with a benevolent mind, sympathetic for the well-being of all living beings. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Having abandoned dullness and drowsiness, he dwells perceiving light, mindful and clearly comprehending. He purifies his mind from dullness and drowsiness. Having abandoned restlessness and worry, he dwells at ease within himself, and with a peaceful mind, he purifies his mind from restlessness and worry. Having abandoned doubt, he dwells as one who has passed beyond doubt, unperplexed about the wholesome states, such as he purifies his mind from doubt. Great king, suppose a man were to take a loan and apply it to his business, and his business were to succeed, so that he could pay back his old debts and would have enough money left over to maintain a wife. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, great king, suppose a man were to become sick, afflicted, gravely ill, so that he could not enjoy his food, and his strength would decline. After some time, he would recover from that illness and would enjoy his food and regain his bodily strength. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, great king, suppose a man were locked up in a prison. After some time, he would be released from prison, safe and secure, with no loss of his possessions. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, great king, suppose a man were a slave without independence, subservient to others, unable to go where he wants. After some time, he would be released from slavery and gain his independence. He would no longer be subservient to others, but a free man able to go where he wants. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, great king, suppose a man with a great wealth and possessions were traveling along a desert road where food was scarce and dangers were many. After some time, he would cross over the desert and arrive safely at a village which is safe and free from danger. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. In the same way, great king, when a bhikshu sees that these 5 hindrances are unabandoned within himself, he regards that as a debt, as a sickness, as a confinement in prison, as slavery, as a desert road. But when he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, he regards that as freedom from debt, as benevolent health, as release from prison, as freedom from slavery, as a place of safety. When he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, gladness arises. When he is glad, and rapture arises. When his mind is filled with rapture, his body becomes tranquil. Tranquil in body, he experiences happiness. Being happy, his mind becomes concentrated. Quite secluded from sense pleasures, secluded from all unwholesome states, he enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, and filled with the rapture and happiness born of seclusion. He drenches, steeps, and saturates and suffuses his body with this rapture and happiness born of seclusion, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this rapture and happiness. Great king, suppose a skilled bath attendant or his apprentice were to pour soap powder into a metal basin, sprinkle it with water, and knead it into a ball, so that the ball of soap powder be pervaded by moisture, encompassed by moisture, suffused with moisture inside and out, yet would not trickle. In the same way, great king, the bhikshu drenches, steeps, saturates, and suffuses his body with the rapture and happiness born of seclusion, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this rapture and happiness. This great king is a visible fruit of recluseship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. Further, great king, with the subsiding of applied and sustained thought, the bhikshu enters and dwells in the second jhana, which is accompanied by internal confidence and unification of mind, is without applied and sustained thought, and is filled with the rapture and happiness born of concentration. He drenches, steeps, saturates, and suffuses his mind with this rapture and happiness born of concentration, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this rapture and happiness. Great king, suppose that there were a deep lake whose waters were welled up from below. It would have no inlet from water, nor from the east, west, north, or south, nor would it be refilled from time to time with showers of rain, yet a current of cool water welling from within the lake would drench, steep, saturate, and suffuse the whole lake so that there would be no part of that entire lake which is not suffused with the cool water. In the same way, great king, the bhikshu drenches, steeps, saturates, and suffuses his body with the rapture and happiness born of concentration, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this rapture and happiness. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluseship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. For the great king, when the fading away of rapture, the bhikshu dwells in equanimity, mindful and clearly comprehending, and experiences happiness with the body. Thus he enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble one declares, he dwells happily with equanimity and mindfulness. He drenches, steeps, saturates, and suffuses his body with this happiness, free from rapture, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this happiness. Great king, suppose in a lotus pond there were blue, white, or red lotuses that have been born in the water, grown in the water, and never rise up above the water, but flourish immersed in the water. From their tips to their roots they would be drenched, steeped, saturated, and suffused with cool water, so that there would be no part of those lotuses not suffused with cool water. In the same way, great king, the bhikshu drenches, steeps, and saturates, and suffuses his body with the happiness free from rapture, so that there is no part of his entire body which is not suffused by this happiness. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. Further, great king, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the previous passing away of joy and grief, the bhikshu enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither pleasant nor painful, and contains mindfulness, fully purified by equanimity. He sits suffusing his body with a pure-bright mind, so that there is no part of his entire body not suffused by a pure-bright mind. Great king, suppose a man were to be sitting covered from head down by a white cloth, so that there would be no part of his entire body not suffused by the white cloth. In the same way, great king, the bhikshu sits suffusing his body with a pure, bright mind, so that there is no part of his entire body not suffused by a pure, bright mind. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated by pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision. He understands thus: this is my body, having material form, composed of the four primary elements, originated from far more, built up out of rice and gruel, impermanent, subject to rubbing and pressing, to dissolution and dispersion, and this is my consciousness, supported by it and bound up with it. Great king, suppose there were a beautiful barrel gem of purest water, eight-faceted, well-cut, clear, limpid, flawless, endowed with all excellent qualities, and through it there would run a blue, yellow, red, white, or brown thread. A man with keen sight, taking it in his hand, would reflect upon it thus: this is a beautiful barrel gem of purest water, eight-faceted, well-cut, clear, limpid, flawless, endowed with all excellent qualities, and running through it there is this blue, yellow, red, white, or brown thread. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision, and understands thus: this is my body, having material form, and this is my consciousness, supported by it and bound up with it. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to creating a mind-made body. From this body he creates another body, having material form and mind-made, complete in all its parts, not lacking any faculties. Great king, suppose a man were to draw out a reed from its sheath, he would think, this is the reed, this is the sheath. The reed is one thing, the sheath another, but the reed has been drawn out from the sheath. Or suppose a man were to draw a sword out from its scabbard, he would think, this is the sword, this is the scabbard. The sword is one thing, the scabbard another, but the sword has been drawn out from the scabbard. Or suppose a man were to pull out a snake from its slaw, he would think, this is the snake, this is the slaw. The snake is one thing, the slaw another, but the snake has been pulled out from the slaw. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to creating a mind-made body. From this body he creates another body, having material form, mind-made, complete in all its parts, not lacking any faculties. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal power. He exercises the various modes of supernormal power. Having been one, he becomes many. Having been many, he becomes one. He appears and vanishes. He goes unimpeded through walls, ramparts, and mountains as if through space. He dives in and out of the earth as if it were water. He walks on water without sinking as if it were the earth. Sitting cross-legged, he travels through space like a winged bird. With his hand, he touches and strokes the soleil and the moon, so mighty and powerful. He exercises mastery over the body as distant as the Brahma world. Great king, suppose a skilled potter or his apprentice were to make and fashion out of well-prepared clay whatever kind of vessel he might desire. Or suppose a skilled ivory worker or his apprentice were to make and fashion out of well-prepared ivory whatever kind of ivory work he might desire. Or suppose a skilled goldsmith or his apprentice were to make and fashion out of well-prepared gold whatever kind of gold work he might desire. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal power. He exercises the various modes of supernormal power. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he declines it and reclines. He directs and inclines it to the divine ear, the sacred ear knowledge. With the sacred ear element, he directs and inclines it to the sacred ear element. With the sacred ear element, which is purified and surpasses the human, he hears both kinds of sound, the sacred and the human, those which are distant and those which are near. Great king, suppose a man traveling along the highway were to hear the sounds of kettle drums, tabors, horns, cymbals, and tom-toms, and would think, this is the sound of kettle drums, this is the sound of tabors, this is the sound of horns, cymbals, and tom-toms. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the sacred ear element. With the sacred ear element, which is purified and surpasses the human, he hears both kinds of sound, the sacred and the human, those which are distant and those which are near. This too great king is a visible fruit of rectorship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of encompassing the minds of others. He understands the minds of other beings and persons, having encompassed them with his own mind. He understands a mind with lust as a mind with lust, and a mind without lust as a mind without lust. He understands a mind with hatred as a mind with hatred, and a mind without hatred as a mind without hatred. He understands a mind with delusion as a mind with delusion, and a mind without delusion as a mind without delusion. He understands a contracted mind as a contracted mind, and a distracted mind as a distracted mind. He understands an exalted mind as an exalted mind, and an unexalted mind as an unexalted mind. He understands a surpassable mind as a surpassable mind, and an unsurpassable mind as an unsurpassable mind. He understands a concentrated mind as a concentrated mind, and an unconcentrated mind as an unconcentrated mind. He understands a liberated mind as a liberated mind, and an unliberated mind as an unliberated mind. Great king, suppose a young man or woman fond of ornaments, examining his or her own facial features for reflection in a pure bright mirror, or in a bowl of clear water, would know, if there were a mole, it has a mole, and if there were no mole, it has no mole. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the knowledge of encompassing the minds of others. He understands the minds of other beings and persons, having encompassed them with his own mind. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of recollecting past lives. He recollects his numerous past lives, that is, 1 birth, 2 births, 3, 4, or 5 births, 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 births, 100 births, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many eons of world contraction, many eons of world expansion, many eons of world contraction and expansion, recollecting that I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my span of life. Passing away from that state, I re-arose there. There too I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my span of life. Passing away from that state, I re-arose here. Thus he recollects his numerous past lives and their modes and their details. Great king, suppose a man were to go from his own village to another village, and from that village still to another village, and from that village he would return to his own village. He would think to himself, I went from my village to that village. There I stood in such a way, said in such a way, spoke in such a way, and remained silent in such a way. From that village I went to still another village. There too I stood in such a way, sat in such a way, spoke in such a way, and remained silent in such a way. From that village I returned to my own village. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the knowledge of recollecting past lives, and he recollects his numerous past lives and their modes and their details. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. Great king, suppose in a central square there were a building with an upper terrace, and a man with keen sight standing there were to see people entering a house, leaving it, walking along the streets, and sitting in the central square. He would think to himself, those people are entering the house, those are leaving it, those are walking along the streets, and those are sitting in the central square. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. With a sacred eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, and understands how beings fare according to their karma. This too great king is a visible fruit of rectorship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. Great king, suppose in a central square there were a building with an upper terrace, and a man with keen sight standing there were to see people entering a house, leaving it, walking along the streets, and sitting in the central square. He would think to himself, those people are entering the house, those are leaving it, those are walking along the streets, and those are sitting in the central square. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. With the sacred eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, and he understands how beings fare according to their karma. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluse, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, willy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the destruction of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the origin of suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is, these are the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the origin of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the cessation of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the way leading to the cessation of the cankers. Knowing and seeing thus, his mind is liberated from the canker of sensual desire, from the canker of existence, and from the canker of ignorance. When it is liberated, the knowledge rises, it is liberated. He understands, destroyed his birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is nothing further beyond this. Great king, suppose in a mountain glen there were a lake with clear water, limpid and unsullied. A man with keen sight standing on the bank would see oyster shells, sand and pebbles, and shoals of fish moving about and keeping still. He would think to himself, this is a lake with clear water, limpid and unsullied, and there within it are oyster shells, sand and pebbles, and shoals of fish moving about and keeping still. In the same way, great king, when his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, the bhikshu directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the destruction of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the origin of suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is, these are the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the origin of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the cessation of the cankers. He understands as it truly is, this is the way leading to the cessation of the cankers. Destroyed his birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is nothing further beyond this. This too great king is a visible fruit of recluseship, further excellent and sublime than the previous ones. And great king, there is no other fruit of recluseship higher or further sublime than this one. When the exalted one had finished speaking, King Ajatasattu said to him, Excellent, venerable sir, excellent, venerable sir. Just as if one were to turn upright what has been turned upside down, or to reveal what was hidden, or to point out the right path to one who was lost, or to bring a lamp into a dark place so that with keen sight could see forms. In the same way, venerable sir, the exalted one has revealed the Dharma in numerous ways. I go for refuge to the exalted one, to the Dharma, and to the Bhikshu Sangha. Let the exalted one accept me as a lay follower gone for refuge from this day onwards as long as I live. Venerable sir, a transgression overcame me. I was so foolish, so deluded, so unskillful that for the sake of rulership I took the life of my own far, a righteous man and a righteous king. Let the exalted one acknowledge my transgression as a transgression for the sake of my restraint in the future. Indeed, great king, a transgression overcame you. You were so foolish, so deluded, so unskillful that for the sake of rulership you took the life of your far, a righteous man and a righteous king. But since you have seen your transgression as a transgression and make amends for it according to the Dharma, we acknowledge it. For great king, this is growth in the discipline of the noble one, that a person sees his transgression as a transgression, makes amends for it according to the Dharma, and achieves restraint in the future. When this was said, King Ajatasattu said to the exalted one, Now, venerable sir, we must go. We have many tasks and duties. Do whatever seems fit, great king. Then King Ajatasattu rejoiced in the word of the exalted one and thanked him for it. Rising from his seat, he paid homage to the exalted one, circumambulated him, and departed. Soon after King Ajatasattu had left, the exalted one addressed the bhikshus. This king bhikshus has ruined himself, he has injured himself. Bhikshus. If this king had not taken the life of his far, a righteous man and a righteous king, then in this very seat there would have arisen in him the dust-free, stainless eye of Dharma. Thus spoke the exalted one. Elated in mind, the bhikshus rejoiced in the exalted one's word. Dhammapada, Popavaga 4. Who shall overcome this earth, this realm of Yama, and this sphere of men and angels? Who shall bring to perfection the well-taught path of wisdom, as an expert garland maker would his floral design? A striver on the path shall overcome this earth, this realm of Yama, and this sphere of men and angels. The striver on the path shall bring to perfection the well-taught path of wisdom, as an expert garland maker would his floral design. Realizing that this body is like froth, penetrating its mirage like nature, and plucking out flower-tipped arrows of sensuality, go beyond sight of the king of death. As a mighty flood sweeps away the sleeping village, so death carries away the person of distracted mind who only plucks the flowers of pleasure. Destroyer, the destroyer brings under his sway the person of distracted mind, who, insatiate in sense desires, only plucks the flowers of pleasure. As a bee gathers honey from the flowers without injuring its color or fragrance, even so the sage goes on his alms round in the village. Let none find fault with others, let none see the omissions and commissions of others, but let one see one's own acts done and undone. Like a beautiful flower full of color but without fragrance, even so fruitless are the fair words of one who does not practice them. Like a beautiful flower full of color and also fragrant, even so fruitful are the fair words of one who practices them. As from a great heap of flowers many garlands can be made, even so should many benevolent deeds be done by one born a living being. Not the sweet smell of flowers, not even the fragrance of sandal, tagara, or jasmine blows against the wind, but the fragrance of the virtuous blows against the wind. Truly, the virtuous man pervades all directions with the fragrance of his virtue. Of all the fragrances, sandal, tagara, blue lotus, and jasmine, the fragrance of virtue is the sweetest. Faint is the fragrance of tagara and sandal, but excellent is the fragrance of the virtuous, wafting even amongst the angels. Mara never finds the path of the truly virtuous, who abide in heedfulness and are freed by perfect knowledge. Upon a heap of rubbish in the roadside ditch blooms a lotus, fragrant and pleasing. Even so on the rubbish heap of blinded living beings, the disciple of the supremely enlightened one shines resplendent in wisdom. Matthew 7:8. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you utilize will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to portions. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, the door will be open. To the one who knocks, the door will be open. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give benevolent gifts to your children, how much further will your Creator in heaven give benevolent gifts to those who ask God? So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every benevolent tree bears benevolent fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A benevolent tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear benevolent fruit. Every tree that does not bear benevolent fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus by their fruit you will recognize them. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, will enter the sovereignty of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Creator who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Master, Master, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Master, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, See that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moshe commanded as a testimony to them. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Master, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, Shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Master, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, Go, and he goes, and that one, Come, and he comes. I say to my servant, Do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov in the sovereignty of heaven. But the subject of the sovereignty will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, Go, let it be done just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that moment. When Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to wait on him. When evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to him, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Another disciple said to him, Master, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead. Then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly a ferocious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, Master, save us, we are going to drown. He replied, You of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. When he arrived at the other side in the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. What do you want with us, Son of God? They shouted. Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time? Some distance from them a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs. He said to them, Go. So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. Quran, Surah An-Nisa 4. Bismillah ar-Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. O mankind, reverence your guardian, Lord, who created you from a single person, created of like nature, his mate, and from them twain scattered like seeds countless men and women. Reverence Allah through whom ye demand your mutual rights, and reverence the wombs that bore you, for Allah ever watches over you. To orphans restore their property when they reach their age, nor substitute your worthless things for their beneficial ones. And devour not their substance by mixing it up with your own, for this is indeed a great sin. If ye fear that ye shall not be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. But if ye fear that ye shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only one, or a captive that your right hands possess, that will be further suitable to prevent you from doing injustice. And give the women on marriage their dower as a free gift, but if they of their own benevolent pleasure remit any part of it to you, take it and enjoy it with right benevolent cheer. To those weak of understanding, make not over your property, which Allah hath made a means of support for you, but feed and clothe them therewith, and speak to them words of kindness and justice. Make trial of orphans until they reach the age of marriage. If then ye find such sound judgment in them, release their property to them, but consume it not wastefully, nor in haste against their growing up. If the guardian is well off, let him claim no remuneration, but if he is poor, let him have for himself what is just and reasonable. When ye release their property to them, take witnesses in their presence, but all sufficient is Allah in taking account. From what is left by parents and those nearest related, there is a share for men and a share for women, whether the property be small or large, a determinate share. But if at the time of division other relatives or orphans or poor are present, feed them out of their property, and speak to them words of kindness and justice. Let those disposing of an estate have the same fear in their minds as they would have for their own if they had left a helpless family behind. Let them fear Allah and speak words of appropriate comfort. Those who unjustly eat up the property of orphans eat up a fire into their own bodies. They will soon be enduring a blazing fire. Allah thus directs you as regards your children's inheritance. To the male, a portion equal to that of 2 females. If only daughters, 2 or further, their share is 2/3 of the inheritance. If only one, her share is half. For parents, a sixth share of the inheritance to each if the deceased left children. If no children and the parents are the only heirs, the more has a third. If the deceased left brothers or sisters, the more has a sixth. The distribution in all cases after the payment of legacies and debts. Ye know not whether your parents or your children are nearest to you in benefit. These are settled portions ordained by Allah, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. In what your wives leave, your share is a half if they leave no child, but if they leave a child, ye get a fourth after payment of legacies and debts. In what ye leave, their share is a fourth if ye leave no child. But if ye leave a child, they get an eighth after payment of legacies and debts. If the man or woman whose inheritance is in question has left neither ascendants nor descendants, but has left a brother or a sister, each one of the two gets a sixth, but if further than two, they share in a third, after payment of legacies and debts, so that no loss is caused to anyone. Thus is it ordained by Allah, and Allah is all-knowing, most forbearing. Those are limits set by Allah. Those who obey Allah and Allah's Messenger will be admitted to gardens with rivers flowing beneath to abide therein forever, and that will be the supreme achievement. But those who disobey Allah and Allah's Messenger and transgress Allah's limits will be admitted to a fire to abide therein, and they shall have a humiliating punishment. If any of your women are guilty of lewdness, take the evidence of 4 reliable witnesses from amongst you against them, and if they testify, confine them to houses until death do claim them, or Allah ordain for them some other way. If 2 men amongst you are guilty of lewdness, punish them both. If they repent and amend, leave them alone, for Allah is oft returning, most merciful. Allah accept the repentance of those who do evil in ignorance and repent soon afterwards. To them will Allah turn in mercy, for Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. Of no effect is the repentance of those who continue to do evil until death faces one of them, and he says, "Now I have repented indeed." Nor of those who die rejecting faith, for them have we prepared a punishment most grievous. O ye who believe, ye are forbidden to inherit women against their will, nor should ye treat them with harshness, that ye may take away part of the dower ye have given them, except where they have been guilty of open lewdness. On the contrary, live with them on a footing of kindness and equity. If ye take a dislike to them, it may be that ye dislike a thing, and Allah brings about through it a great deal of benevolence. But if ye decide to take one wife in place of another, even if ye had given the latter a whole treasure for dower, take not the least bit of it back. Would ye take it by slander and manifest wrong? And how could ye take it when ye have gone in unto each other, and they have taken from you a solemn covenant? And marry not women whom your fathers married, except what is past. It was shameful and odious, an abominable custom indeed. Prohibited to you for marriage are your Moors' daughters, sisters, Fars' sisters, Moor sisters, brothers' daughters, sisters' daughters, foster Moors who gave you suck, foster sisters, your wives' Moors, your stepdaughters under your guardianship, born of your wives, to whom ye have gone in. No prohibition if ye have not gone in. Those who have been wives of your sons proceeding from your loins, and 2 sisters in wedlock at one and the same time, except for what is past, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. Also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. Thus hath Allah ordained prohibitions against you. Except for these, all others are lawful, provided ye seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, desiring chastity, not lust. Seeing that you derive benefit from them, give them their dowers, at least as prescribed. But if after a dower is prescribed, agree mutually to vary it, there is no blame on you, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. If any of you have not the means wherewith to wed free believing women, they may wed believing girls from amongst those whom your right hands possess, and Allah hath full knowledge about your faith. Ye are one from another, wed them with leave of their owners, and give them their dowers according to what is reasonable. They should be chaste, not lustful, nor taking paramours when they are taken in wedlock. If they fall into shame, their punishment is half that for free women. This permission is for those amongst you who fear sin, but it is better for you that ye practice self-restraint, and Allah is all-forgiving, most merciful. Allah doth wish to make clear to you and to show you the ordinances of those before you, and Allah doth wish to turn to you in mercy, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Allah doth wish to turn to you, but the wish of those who follow their lust is that ye should turn away from Allah, distantly away. Allah doth wish to lighten your difficulties, for man was created weak in flesh. O ye who believe, eat up not your property amongst yourselves in vanities, but let there be amongst you traffic and trade by mutual benevolent will, nor kill or destroy yourselves, for verily Allah hath been to you most merciful. If any do that in rancor and injustice, soon shall we cast them into the fire, and easy it is for Allah. If ye but eschew the most heinous of the things which ye are forbidden to do, we shall expel out of you all the evil in you, and admit you to a gate of great honor. And in no wise covet those things in which Allah hath bestowed Allah's gift further freely on some of you than on others. To men is allotted what they earn, and to women what they earn, but ask of Allah Allah's bounty, for Allah hath full knowledge of all things. To benefit everyone, we have appointed shares and heirs to property left by parents and relatives. To those also to whom your right hand was pledged, give their due portion, for truly Allah is witness to all things. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because Allah has given the one further strength than the other, and because they support them from their means. Therefore, the righteous women are devoutly obedient and guard in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. As to those women on whose part ye fear disloyalty and ill conduct, admonish them first, next refuse to share their beds, and last beat them lightly. But if they return to obedience, seek not against them means of annoyance, for Allah is most high, great above you all. If ye fear a breach between them twain, appoint 2 arbiters, one from his family and the other from hers. If they wish for peace, Allah will cause their reconciliation, for Allah hath full knowledge and is acquainted with all things. Serve Allah and join not any partners with Allah, and do benevolence to parents, kinsfolk, orphans, those in need, neighbors who are near, neighbors who are strangers, the companion by your side, the wayfarer ye meet, and what your right hands possess. For Allah loveth not the arrogant, the vainglorious, nor those who are stingy, or enjoin stinginess on others, or hide the bounties which Allah hath bestowed on them. For we have prepared for those who resist faith a punishment that steeps them in contempt. Not those who spend of their substance to be seen of men, but have no faith in Allah and the last day. If any take the evil one for their intimate, what a dreadful intimate he is. And what burden were it on them if they had faith in Allah and in the last day, and they spent out of what Allah hath given them for sustenance, for Allah hath full knowledge of them. Allah is never unjust in the least degree. If there is any benevolence done, Allah doubleth it, and giveth from Allah's own presence a great reward. How then, if we brought from each people a witness, and we brought thee as a witness against these people? On that day, those who reject faith and disobey the apostle will wish that the earth were made one with them, but never will they hide a single fact from Allah. O ye who believe, approach not prayers with a mind befogged, until ye can understand all that ye say, nor in a state of ceremonial impurity, except when traveling on the road, until after washing your whole body. If ye are ill or on a journey, or one of you cometh from offices of nature, or ye have been in contact with women, and ye find no water, then take for yourselves clean sand or earth, and rub therewith your faces and hands. For Allah doth blot out sins and forgive again and again. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who were given a portion of the book? They traffic in error, and wish that ye should lose the right path. But Allah hath full knowledge of your enemies. Allah is enough for a protector, and Allah is enough for a helper. Of the Jews there are those who displace words from their right places, and say, we hear and we disobey, and hear what is not heard, and Vayeira, with a twist of their tongues and a slander to faith. If only they had said, we hear and we obey, and do hear and do look at us, it would have been better for them and further proper. But Allah hath cursed them for their unbelief, but few of them will believe. O ye people of the book, believe in what ye have now revealed, confirming what was already with you, before we change the face and fame of some of you beyond all recognition, and turn them hindwards, or curse them as we curse the Shabbat breakers, for the decision of Allah must be carried out. Allah forgiveth not that partners should be set up with Allah, but Allah forgiveth anything else to whom Allah pleaseth. To set up partners with Allah is to devise a sin most heinous indeed. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who claim sanctity for themselves? Nay, but Allah doth sanctify whom Allah pleaseth, but never will they fail to receive justice in the least little thing. Behold how they invent a lie against Allah, but that by itself is a manifest sin. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who were given a portion of the book? They believe in sorcery and evil, and say to the unbelievers that they are better guided in the right way than the believers. They are men whom Allah hath cursed, and those whom Allah hath cursed thou wilt find have no one to help. Have they a share in dominion or power? But behold, they give not a portion to their fellow men. Or do they envy mankind for what Allah hath given them of Allah's bounty? But we had already given the people of Abraham the book and wisdom, and conferred upon them a great kingdom. Some of them believed, and some of them averted their faces from him, and enough is hell for a burning fire. Those who reject our signs we shall soon cast into the fire. As often as their skins are roasted through, we shall change them for fresh skins, that they may taste the penalty, for Allah is exalted in power, wise. But those who believe and do deeds of righteousness we shall soon admit to gardens with rivers flowing beneath their eternal home. Therein shall they have companions pure and holy. We shall admit them to shades cool and ever deepening. Allah doth command you to render back your trust to those to whom they are due, and when ye judge between man and man, that ye judge with justice. Verily, how excellent is the teaching which Allah giveth you, for Allah is Allah who heareth and seeth all things. O ye who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger, and those charged with authority over you, with authority amongst you. If ye differ in anything amongst yourselves, refer to Allah and Allah's Messenger. If ye do believe in Allah and the last day, that is best and most suitable for final determination. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who declare that they believe in the revelations that have come to thee and to those before thee? Their true wish is to resort together for judgment in their disputes to the evil one, though they were ordered to reject him. But Satan's wish is to lead them astray distantly away from the right. When it is said to them, Come to what Allah hath revealed, and to the Messenger, thou seest the hypocrites avert their faces from thee in disgust. How then, when they are seized by misfortune because of the deeds which their hands have sent forth, then they come to thee swearing by Allah, we meant no further than benevolent will and conciliation. Those men, Allah knows what is in their hearts, so keep clear of them, but admonish them and speak to them a word to reach their very souls. We sent not an apostle but to be obeyed in accordance with the will of Allah. If they had only, when they were unjust to themselves, come unto thee and asked Allah's forgiveness, and the Messenger had asked forgiveness for them, they would have found Allah indeed oft returning, most merciful. But know by the Lord, they can have no true faith until they make thee judge in all disputes between them, and find in their souls no resistance against thy decisions, but accept them with the fullest conviction. If we had ordered them to sacrifice their lives or to leave their homes, very few of them would have done it. But if they had done what they were actually told, it would have been best for them, and would have gone furthest to strengthen their faith. And we should then have given them from our presence a great reward. And we should have shown them the straight way. All who obey Allah and the Apostle are in the company of those on whom is the grace of Allah, of the prophets who teach, the sincere lovers of truth, the witnesses who testify, and the righteous who do benevolence. Ah, what a beautiful fellowship. Such is the bounty from Allah, and sufficient is it that Allah knoweth all. O ye who believe, take your precautions, and either go forth in parties or go forth altogether. There are certainly amongst you men who would tarry behind. If a misfortune befalls you, they say, Allah did favor us in it that we were not present amongst them. But if benevolent fortune comes to you from Allah, they would be sure to say, as if there had never been ties of affection between you and them, Ah, I wish I had been with them. A fine thing should I then have made of it. Let those fight in the cause of Allah who sell the life of this world for the hereafter. To him who fighteth in the cause of Allah, whether he is slain or gets victory, soon shall we give him a reward of great value. And why should ye not fight in the cause of Allah and of those who, being weak, are ill-treated and oppressed, men, women, and children, whose cry is, Our Lord, rescue us from this town, whose people are oppressors, and raise for us from the one who will protect, and raise for us from the one who will help. Those who believe fight in the cause of Allah, and those who reject faith fight in the cause of evil. So fight ye against the friends of Satan. Feeble indeed is the cunning of Satan. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who were told to hold back their hands from fight, but establish regular prayers and spend in regular charity? When at length the order for fighting was issued to them, behold, a section of them feared men, as or even further than they should have feared Allah. And they said, Our Lord, why hast thou ordered us to fight? Wouldst thou not grant us respite to our natural term near enough? Say, short is the enjoyment of this world, the hereafter is best for those who do right. Never will ye be dealt with unjustly in the very least. Wherever ye are, death will find you out, and even if ye are in towers built up strong and high. If some benevolence befalls them, they say, This is from Allah, but if evil, they say, This is from thee. O Prophet, say, All things are from Allah. But what hath come to these people, that they fail to understand a single fact. Whatever benevolence, O man, happens to thee is from Allah, but whatever evil happens to thee is from thine own soul. And we have sent thee as an apostle to instruct mankind, and enough is Allah for a witness. He who obeys the messenger of Allah, obeys Allah. But if any turn away, we have not sent thee to watch over their evil deeds. They have obedience on their lips, but when they leave thee, a section of them meditate all night on things very different from what thou tellest them. But Allah records their nightly plots, so keep clear of them, and put thy trust in Allah, and enough is Allah as the disposer of affairs. Do they not consider the Quran with care? Had it been from other than Allah, they would surely have found therein much discrepancy. When there comes to them some matter touching public safety or fear, they divulge it. But if they had only referred it to the messenger or to those charged with authority amongst them, the proper investigators would have tested it from them direct. Were it not for the grace and mercy of Allah unto you, all but a few of you would have fallen into the clutches of Satan. Then fight in Allah's cause. Thou art held responsible only for thyself and rouse the believers. It may be that Allah will restrain the fury of the unbelievers, for Allah is the strongest in might and in punishment. Whoever recommends and helps a benevolent cause becomes a partner therein, and whoever recommends and helps an evil cause shares in its burden, and Allah hath power over all things. When a courteous greeting is offered you, meet it with a greeting still further courteous, or at least of equal courtesy. Allah takes careful account of all things. Allah, there is none other deity but Allah. Of a surety, Allah will gather you together against the day of judgment, about which there is no doubt, and whose word can be truer than Allah's. Why should you be divided into two parties about the hypocrites? Allah hath upset them for their evil deeds. Would ye guide those whom Allah hath thrown out of the way? For those whom Allah hath thrown out of the way, never shalt thou find the way. They but wish that ye should reject faith as they do, and thus be on the same footing as they. But take not friends from their ranks until they flee in the way of Allah from what is forbidden. But if they turn renegades, seize them and slay them wherever ye find them, and in any case take no friends or helpers from their ranks. Except those who join a group between whom and you there is a treaty of peace, or those who approach you with hearts restraining them from fighting you as well as fighting their own people. If Allah had pleased, Allah could have given them power over you, and they would have fought you. Therefore, if they withdraw from you but fight you not, and instead send you guarantees of peace, then Allah hath opened no way for you to war against them. Others you will find that wish to gain your confidence as well as that of other people. Every time they are sent back to temptation, they succumb thereto. If they withdraw not from you, nor give you guarantees of peace, besides restraining their hands, seize them and slay them wherever you get them. In their case, we have provided you with a clear argument against them. Never should a believer kill a believer, but if it so happens by mistake, compensation is due. If one so kills a believer, it is ordained that he should free a believing slave and pay compensation to the deceased family, unless they remit it freely. If the deceased belong to a people at war with you, and he was a believer, the freeing of a believing slave is enough. If he belong to a people with whom ye have a treaty of mutual alliance, compensation should be paid to his family, and a believing slave be freed. For those who find this beyond their means, is prescribed a fast for 2 months running by way of repentance to Allah, for Allah hath all knowledge and all wisdom. If a man kills a believer intentionally, his recompense is held to abide therein forever, and the wrath and the curse of Allah are upon him, and a dreadful penalty is prepared for him. O ye who believe, when ye go abroad in the cause of Allah, investigate carefully, and say not to anyone who offers you a salutation, thou art not a believer. Thou art none of a believer, coveting the perishable treasures of this life. With Allah are the benefits and spoils abundant. Even thus were ye yourselves before, till Allah conferred on you Allah's favors. Therefore carefully investigate, for Allah is well aware of all that ye do. Not equal are those believers who sit at home and receive no hurt, and those who strive and fight in the cause of Allah with their treasures and their persons. Allah hath granted a great hire to those who strive and fight with their treasures and persons than to those who sit at home. Unto all in faith hath Allah promised benevolence, but those who strive and fight hath Allah distinguished above those who sit at home by a special reward. Ranks specially bestowed by Allah, and forgiveness and mercy, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. When angels take the souls of those who die in sin against their souls, they say, in what plight were ye? They reply, weak and oppressed were we in the earth. They say, was not the earth of Allah spacious enough for you to move yourselves away from evil? Such men will find their abode in hell. What an evil refuge. Except those who are truly weak and oppressed, men, women, and children, who have no means in their power, nor a guidepost to their way. For these there is hope that Allah will forgive, for Allah doth blot out sins and forgive again and again. He who forsakes his home in the cause of Allah finds in the earth many a refuge, wide and spacious. Should he die as a refugee from home for Allah and Allah's messenger, Allah's reward becomes due and sure with Allah, and Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. When you travel through the earth, there is no blame on you if ye shorten your prayers, for fear of the unbelievers may attack you, for the unbelievers are unto you open enemies. When thou, O Messenger, art with them, and standest to lead them in prayer, let one party of them stand up in prayer with thee, taking their arms with them. When they finish their prostrations, let them take their position in the rear, and let the other party come up which hath not yet prayed, and let them pray with thee, taking all precaution and bearing arms. The unbelievers wish, if ye were negligent of your arms and your baggage, to assault you in a single rush. But there is no blame on you if ye put away your arms because of the inconvenience of rain, or because of ye are ill. But take every precaution for yourselves, for the unbelievers Allah hath prepared a humiliating punishment. When ye pass congregational prayers, celebrate Allah's praises, standing, sitting down, or lying down on your sides. But when ye are free from danger, set up regular prayers, for such prayers are enjoined on believers at stated times. And slacken not in following up the enemy. If ye are suffering hardships, they are suffering similar hardships, but ye have hope from Allah, whilst they have none, and Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. We have set down to thee the book in truth, that thou mightest judge between men, and as guided by Allah, so be not used as an advocate by those who betray their trust. But seek the forgiveness of Allah, for Allah is our forgiving, most merciful. Contend not on behalf of such as betray their own souls, for Allah loveth not one given to perfidy and crime. They may hide their crimes from men, but they cannot hide them from Allah, seeing that Allah is in their midst when they plot by night in words that Allah cannot approve, and Allah doth compass round all that they do. These are the sort of men on whose behalf ye may contend in this world, but who will contend with Allah on their behalf on the day of judgment, or who will carry their affairs through? If anyone does evil or wrongs his own soul, but afterwards seeks Allah's forgiveness, he will find Allah all forgiving, most merciful. And if anyone earns sin, he earns it against his own soul, for Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. But if anyone earns a fault or a sin and throws it on to one that is innocent, he carries on himself both a falsehood and a flagrant sin. But for the grace of Allah to thee and Allah's mercy, a party of them would certainly have plotted to lead thee astray, but in fact they will only lead their own souls astray, and to thee they can do no harm in the least, for Allah hath sent down to thee the book and wisdom, and taught thee what thou knewest not before, and great is the grace of Allah unto thee. In most of their secret talks there is no benevolence, but if one exhorts to a deed of charity or justice or conciliation between men, secrecy is permissible. To him who does this, seeking the benevolent pleasure of Allah, we shall soon give a reward of the highest value. If anyone contends with a messenger, even after guidance has been plainly conveyed to him, and follows a path other than that becoming to men of faith, we shall leave him in the path he has chosen, and land him in hell. What an evil refuge! Allah forgiveth not the sin of joining other deities with Allah, but Allah forgiveth whom Allah pleaseth other sins than this. One who joins other deities with Allah hath strayed distantly away from the right. The hedonists, leaving Allah, call but upon female deities. They call but upon Satan, the persistent rebel. Allah did curse him, but he said, I will take of thy servants a portion marked off. I will mislead them, and I will create in them false desires. I will order them to slit the ears of cattle, and to deface the fair nature created by Allah. Whoever, forsaking Allah, takes Satan for a friend, hath of a surety suffered a loss that is manifest. Satan makes them promises and creates in them false desires, but Satan's promises are nothing but deception. They, his dupes, will have their dwelling in hell, and from it they will find no way of escape. But those who believe and do deeds of righteousness, we shall soon admit them to gardens with rivers flowing beneath, to dwell therein forever. Allah's promise is the truth, and whose word can be truer than Allah's? Not your desires nor those of the people of the book can prevail. Whoever works evil will be requited accordingly, nor will he find besides Allah any protector or helper. If any do deeds of righteousness, be they male or female, and have faith, they will enter heaven, and not the least injustice will be done to them. Who can be better in religion than one who submits his whole self to Allah, does benevolence, and follows the way of Abraham the true in faith? For Allah did take Abraham for a friend. But to Allah belong all things in the heavens and on earth, and Allah it is that encompass all things. They ask thy instruction concerning the women, say, Allah doth instruct you about them. And remember what hath been rehearsed unto you in the book concerning the orphans of women, to whom ye give not the portions prescribed, and yet whom ye desire to marry, as also concerning the children who are weak and oppressed, that ye stand firm for justice to orphans. There is not a benevolent deed which ye do, but Allah is well acquainted therewith. If a wife fears cruelty or desertion on her husband's part, there is no blame on them if they arrange an amicable settlement between themselves, and such settlement is best, even though men's souls are swayed by greed. If ye do benevolence and practice self-restraint, Allah is well acquainted with all that ye do. Ye are never able to be fair and just as between women, even if it is your ardent desire. But turn not away from a woman altogether, so as to leave her as it were hanging in the air. If ye come to a friendly understanding and practice self-restraint, Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. But if they disagree and must part, Allah will provide abundance for all from Allah's all-reaching bounty, for Allah is Allah that careth for all and is wise. To Allah belong all things in the heavens and on earth. Verily, we have directed the people of the book before you, and you, O Muslims, to fear Allah. But if you deny Allah, lo, unto Allah belong all things in the heavens and on earth, and Allah is free of all wants, worthy of all praise. Yea, unto Allah belong all things in the heavens and on earth, and enough is Allah to carry through all affairs. If it were Allah's will, Allah could destroy you, O mankind, and create another race, for Allah hath power this to do. If anyone desires a reward in this life, if in Allah's gift is the reward both of this life and of the hereafter, for Allah is Allah that heareth and seeth all things. O ye who believe, stand out firmly for injustice as witnesses to Allah, even as against yourselves or your parents or your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor. For Allah can best protect both. Follow not the lusts of your hearts, lest ye swerve, and if ye distort justice or decline to do justice, verily Allah is well acquainted with all that ye do. O ye who believe in Allah and Allah's messenger, and the scripture which Allah hath sent to Allah's messenger, and the scripture which Allah sent to those before him. Any who denieth Allah, Allah's angels, Allah's books, Allah's messenger, and the day of judgment hath gone distantly astray. Those who believe, then reject faith, then believe again and again, reject faith, and go on increasing in unbelief, Allah will not forgive them, nor guide them on the way. To the hypocrites give the glad tidings that there is for them but a grievous penalty. Yea, to those who take for friends unbelievers rather than believers, is it honor they seek amongst themselves? Nay, all honor is with Allah. Already has Allah sent you word in the book that when ye hear the signs of Allah held in defiance and ridicule, ye are not to sit with them unless they turn to a different theme. If ye did, ye would be like them, for Allah will collect the hypocrites and those who defy faith in hell. These are the ones who wait and watch about you. If you do gain a victory from Allah, they say, were we not with you? But if the unbelievers gain a success, they say to them, did we not gain an advantage over you? And did we not guard you from the believers? But Allah will judge betwixt you on the day of judgment, and never will Allah grant to the unbelievers a way to triumph over the believers. The hypocrites, they think they are overreaching Allah, but Allah will overreach them. When they stand up to prayer, they stand without earnestness to be seen of men, but little do they hold Allah in remembrance. They are distracted in mind, even in the midst of it, being sincerely for neither one group nor for another, whom Allah leaves straying. Never wilt thou find for him the way. O ye who believe, take not for friends unbelievers rather than believers. Do ye wish to offer Allah an open proof against yourselves? The hypocrites will be in the lowest depths of the fire. No helper wilt thou find for them, except for those who repent, mend their ways, mend their lives, hold fast to Allah, and purify their religion, as in Allah's sight. If so, they will be numbered with the believers, and soon will Allah grant to the believers a reward of immense value. What can Allah gain by your punishment if ye are grateful and ye believe? Nay, it is Allah that recognizeth all benevolence and knoweth all things. Allah loveth not that evil should be noised abroad in public speech, except where injustice hath been done, for Allah is Allah who heareth and knoweth all things. Whether ye publish a benevolent deed, or conceal it, or cover it evil with pardon, verily Allah doth blot out sins, and hath power in the judgment of values. Those who deny Allah and Allah's apostles, and those who wish to separate Allah from Allah's apostles, saying, we believe in some but reject others, and those who wish to take a course of midway, they are in truth equally unbelievers, and we have prepared for unbelievers a humiliating punishment. To those who believe in Allah and Allah's apostles, and make no distinction between any of the apostles, we shall soon give their due rewards, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. The people of the book asked thee to cause a book to descend to them from heaven. Indeed, they asked Moshe for an even greater miracle, for they said, show us Allah in public. But they were dazed for their presumption with thunder and lightning, yet they worshipped the calf even after clear signs had come to them. Even so we forgave them and gave Moshe manifest proofs of authority. And for their covenant we raised over them the towering height of Mount Sinai, and on another occasion we said, enter the gate with humility, and once again we commanded them, transgress not in the matter of Shabbat, and we took from them a solemn covenant. They have incurred divine displeasure in that they broke their covenant, that they rejected the signs of Allah, and that they slew the messengers in defiance of right, that they said, our hearts are the wrappings which preserve Allah's word, we need no further. Nay, Allah hath set the seal on their hearts for their blasphemy, and little is it they believe. that they rejected faith, that they uttered against Mary a grave false charge, that they said in boast, We killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. But they killed him not, nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them, and those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow, for of a surety they killed him not. Nay, Allah raised him up unto Allah, and Allah is exalted in power wise. And there is none of the people of the book but must believe in him before his death, and on the day of judgment he will be a witness against them. For the iniquity of the Jews we made unlawful for them certain foods benevolent and wholesome, which had been lawful for them, in that they hindered many from Allah's way, that they took usury though they were forbidden, and that they devoured men's substance wrongfully. We have prepared for those amongst them who reject faith a grievous punishment. But those amongst them who are well grounded in knowledge, and the believers believe in what have been revealed to thee, and what was revealed before thee, and especially those who establish regular prayer and practice regular charity, and believe in Allah and in the last day, to them shall we soon give a great reward. We have sent the inspiration as we send it to Noach and the messengers after him. We sent inspiration to Abraham, Ishmael, Yitzhak, Yaakov, and the tribes, to Jesus, Job, Jonah, Aaron, and Solomon, and to David we gave the Psalms. Of some apostles we have already told thee the story, of others we have not, and to Moshe Allah spoke direct. Messengers who gave benevolent news as well as warning that mankind after the coming of the apostles should have no plea against Allah, for Allah is exalted in power wise. But Allah beareth witness that what Allah hath sent unto thee, Allah has sent from Allah's own knowledge, and the angels bear witness. But enough is Allah for a witness. Those who reject faith and keep off men from the way of Allah have verily strayed distantly away from the path. Those who reject faith and do wrong, Allah will not forgive them nor guide them to any way, except the way of hell, to dwell therein forever, and this to Allah is easy. O mankind, the messenger hath come to you in truth from Allah. Believe in him, it is best for you. But if you reject faith, to Allah belong all things in the heavens and on earth, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. O people of the book, commit no excesses in your religion, nor say of Allah aught but the truth. Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, was no further than an apostle of Allah and Allah's word, which Allah bestowed on Mary, and a spirit proceeding from Allah. So believe in Allah and Allah's apostles. Say not Trinity, desist, it will be better for you, for Allah is one Allah. Glory be to Allah. Distantly exalted is Allah above having a son. To Allah belongs all things in the heavens and on earth, and enough is Allah as a disposer of affairs. Christ disdaineth not to serve and worship Allah, nor do the angels, those nearest to Allah. Those who disdain Allah's worship and are arrogant, Allah will gather them all together unto Allah to answer. But to those who believe and do deeds of righteousness, Allah will give their due rewards, and further out of Allah's bounty. But those who are disdainful and arrogant, Allah will punish with a grievous penalty, nor will they find besides Allah any to protect or help them. O mankind, verily there hath come to you a convincing proof from your Lord, for we have sent unto you a light that is manifest. Then those who believe in Allah and hold fast to Allah, soon will Allah admit them to mercy and grace from Allah, and guide them to Allah by a straight way. They ask thee for a legal decision, say, Allah directs thus about those who leave no descendants or ascendants as heirs. If it is a man that dies leaving a sister but no child, she shall have half the inheritance. If such a deceased was a woman who left no child, her brother takes her inheritance. If there are two sisters, they shall have 2/3 of the inheritance between them. If there are brothers and sisters, they share, the male having twice the share of the female. Thus doth Allah make clear to you Allah's law, lest ye err, and Allah hath knowledge of all things. Hodin Hashanim. Dignahuida, verse 75 a 99, 94. On the 18th night, a runner came from the south. He was from the nation residing on the seashore. He told the chiefs of the eminent man who had now come to the town of the Mohawk River at the lower falls. Then the messenger said, "We have heard of the dream of Onondaga, which told of the great man who came from the north. Now another great man who shall now go forward in haste to meet him shall change his course and go eastward to meet in the flinty land village, Kanyakayhake, the great man. There shall the two counsel together and establish the great peace." So said the messenger from the saltwater seashore, who came to tell Hiawatha to journey east. So the chiefs of the town where Hiawatha was staying chose 5 men as an escort for Hiawatha. They must go with him until he reached the house where Dignahuida was present. So then on the next day, the chief himself went with the party and watched carefully the health of Hiawatha. The journey lasted 5 days, and on the 5th day, the party stopped on the outskirts of the town where Dignahuida was staying, and then they built a fire. This was the custom, to make a smoke so that the town might know that the visitors were approaching and send word that they might enter without danger to their lives. The smoke was the signal of friends approaching. The Mohawks, people of the flinty country, knew the meaning of the signal, so that they sent messengers and invited the party into the village. When Hiawatha had entered the house where the people had gathered, the chief asked him whom he would like to see most. Then Hiawatha answered, "I came to see a very great man who lately came from the north." The chief said, "I have with you 2 men who shall escort you to the house where Dignahuida is present." Then the people went out, and the 2 men escorted Hiawatha to Dignahuida. This was on the 23rd day. Then Dignahuida arose when Hiawatha had entered, and he said, "My younger brother, I perceive that you have suffered from some deep grief. You are chief amongst your people, and yet you are wandering about." Hiawatha answered, "That person skilled in sorcery, Osino, has destroyed my family of 7 daughters. It was truly a great calamity, and I am now very miserable. My sorrow and my rage have been bitter. I can only rove about, since now I have cast myself away from my people. I am only a wanderer. I split the heavens when I went away from my house and my nation." Dignahuida replied, "Dwell here with me. I will represent your sorrow to the people here dwelling." So Hiawatha had found someone who considered his distress, and he did stay. Then Dignahuida told of his suffering, and the people listened. The 5 escorts were then dismissed, and Hiawatha gave thanks to them and told them to return to their own region again. Then the escorts said, "Now, today it has happened as was foretold in a dream. The 2 are now together. Let them now arrange the great peace." Then they returned home. When Dignahuida laid the trouble before the council, he promised to let Hiawatha know their decision. The chiefs deliberated over the sad events, and then decided to do as Dignahuida should say. He then should remedy the trouble. Then Dignahuida went in perplexity to his lodge. As he came to it, he heard Hiawatha say, "It is useless, for the people only boast what they will do, saying, 'I would do this way,' but they do nothing at all. If what has befallen me should happen to them, I would take down the 3 shell strings from the upright pole, and I would address them, and I would console them, because they would be covered by heavy darkness." Dignahuida stood outside the door and heard all these words. So then Dignahuida went forward into the house, and he went up to the pole, and then he said, "My younger brother, it has now become very plain to my eyes that your sorrow must be removed. Your griefs and your rage have been great. I shall now undertake to remove your sorrow, so that your mind may be rested. Have you no further shell strings on your pole?" Hiawatha replied, "I have no further strings, but I have many shells in a tanned deerskin." So he opened his bundle, and a great quantity of shells fell out. So then Dignahuida said, "My younger brother, I shall string 8 further strands, because there must be 8 parts to my address to you." So then Hiawatha permitted the stringing of the shells, and Dignahuida made the strings, so that in all there were 13 strings, and bound them in 4 bunches. These must be utilized to console the one who has lost by death a near relative. "My younger brother, the 13 strings are now ready on this horizontal pole. I shall utilize them. I shall address you. This is all that is necessary in your case." So then he took one bunch off the pole and held it in his hand whilst he talked. Whilst he talked one after another, he took them down and gave one to Hiawatha after each part of his address. The words that he spoke when he addressed Hiawatha were 8 of the 13 condolences. When the 8 ceremonial addresses had been made by Diganawida, the mind of Hiawatha was made clear. He was then satisfied and once further saw things rightly. Diganawida then said, "My younger brother, these 13 strings of shell are now completed. In the future they shall be utilized in this way. They shall be held in the hand to remind the speaker of each part of his address, and as each part is finished, a string shall be given to the bereaved chief Royane on the other side of the fire. Then shall the Royane hand them back one by one as he addresses a reply. It then can be said, 'I have now become even with you.'" Diganawida then said, "My junior brother, your mind being cleared and you being competent to judge, we now shall make our laws, and when all are made, we shall call the organization we have formed the Great Peace. It shall be the power to abolish war and robbery between brothers and between peace and quietness. As emblems of our Royane titles, we shall wear deer antlers and place them on the heads of Royane men." Hiawatha then said, "What you have said is benevolent. I do agree." Diganawida said, "My younger brother, since you have agreed, I now propose that we compose our peace song. We shall utilize it on our journey to pacify Adadoro. When he hears it, his mind shall be made straight. His mind shall then be like that of other men. This will be true if the singer remembers and makes no error in his singing from the beginning to the end as he walks before Adadoro." Hiawatha said, "I do agree. I truly believe the truth of what you say." Then Diganawida said, "My younger brother, we shall now propose to the Mohawk Council the plan we have made. We shall tell our plan to a confederation and the building of a house of peace. It will be necessary for us to know its opinion and have its consent to proceed." Alhamdulillah, Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim. Allah Wabham. Dao Kadao, Fechong Dao, Ming Kaming, Fechong Ming Ja, Rastafari. Deus nos daqui, essential Santa Fakito Numatum, Vaheguru Sanam. Baruch Ata Elohim, Elohim Medachalam, Ashek Sanam Bamitota Vitivan Super Vaitora. Amen. Baruch Ata Elohim, Elohim Medachalam, Bare Pariagafen. Amen. Kiri Elesom, Sevamas tu Savajikatahi, Sabe Sata Bavantu Sukitata. Vagabim. Aquaba, upendo na amani, fikiri na salami, chinda dam para me ali bov me womenjikam. Punto shabano fikitka. Sheshe, como se nira da mo arigato pelo mai yellow walk and toko shingun. Go managan, go we thank you for the blessings. Ata jama yata flame. Bado, the whole, shanti, man. All thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim Jah, Rastafari.